All right. Hello, everyone. I think we should be live. Oh, I see there's 31 people in here already. Okay, that was fast. Hello, everyone. As usual, let's do a quick mic check. Can you please let me know if there are any issues with the microphone, the sound, the whatever, you know? And if everything is good, then I think we are going to be able to just get right into it. I am going to try. Sound is good. Okay, that sounds good. I'm going to try and keep the a part of this stream is always like a bit of an update of like what's happening in the studio and whatever. I'm gonna try to keep that short and maybe have a little bit more time towards the end for beside the Q&A questions that were asked in the the form, whatever. Ask questions, answer questions that are asked in the chat. I feel like, with the overarching theme of what I suppose people care about the most here today. Once we get to that section, we can whatever. I'm gonna try to have maybe a longer Q&A section at the end. That's what I'm trying to say. Okay, so cool. Let's get to it. So, by the way, somebody mentioned that there is a fun game you can play during the OPR live stream, which is take a shot whenever I say cool, because apparently I say cool very much during these streams. Maybe I don't really have any other filler world. And so, yeah, take a shot and get absolutely wasted for every time I say cool. Okay, so yeah, let's roll right into it. And what's the first item for today? Okay, cool. So, I said cool again. All right, so OPR HPSN. Yes, we announced this already last month. Very, very, very exciting. We are going to Spiel Essen. This is the first time that OPR was represented at a convention a couple months ago, but this is going to be the first time that we have like a large presence or a relatively large presence at a huge convention. So something absolutely new for us. I don't want to go into too much detail in this stream yet because a lot of things are still in preparation. But the idea is that we're going to be at Spiel. We're going to have we're going to have a presence there. We're going to have some tables. We're going to have some miniatures. You can come there and meet us. You can come there and meet me, unless I'm being whiffed away in some business meeting or some sort. And yeah, if you have never seen an OPR mini in real life, you can go check it out. We're gonna have miniatures there, some really nicely painted miniatures as well. We're probably gonna have space for some demos, so you can actually play the games if you've never played them before, or just watch other people play. You're gonna be able to ask questions. You're gonna be able to, you're gonna be able to experience OPR. I guess in a sense as a company. I don't know. It's I always just say like OPR is just a bunch of peeps just making stuff, right? So it feels a little bit strange that we're gonna be at this, you know, trade show and convention, and like now we're like a company, we're a thing. So yeah, I don't know. It's gonna be interesting, and I'm very excited about it. And I'm hoping that by by the next stream, I'm gonna have enough info that I can tell, like, hey, if you want to find us in hall, whatever, at stand, whatever, if we have something interesting going on, whatever, I'll let you know during the next stream. If anybody knows, um, that they're coming or has been interested in coming to Spiel, pop by and hang out. It's gonna be fun. Okay, so that was the preliminary thing, and I see now there's way more people here. That's cool. So, all right, let's talk quickly about the OPR Writing Jam. So every 4 months, guess 4 months, so tri-yearly, whatever. 3 times a year we run a OPR Writing Jam. This is an event where basically over a 48-hour period of time, the fans get together and they write one-page stories set in the OPR universe. I think the jams are actually, so with time the jams are getting more and more exciting because more OPR lore has been revealed and more stuff is being released. So the stories that people write can be made more relatable to the actual setting and the universe and the canon events that happen in there. And yeah, for the first time, we actually had a prize, which is also a new thing. So we have these two minis. These are basically just special poses of existing minis. So they're different, but they're minis that you already have. Well, if you have them, they're minis that you already have. And these are special minis that we give out at specific events, or at well, maybe we're gonna have them at the convention, and you can get them if you win the painting contest, and now you can also get them if you win the writing jam. And we're actually going to try to find more ways to give people an opportunity to win these. And the idea is that we're going to have these in rotation for a while, and then at some point we say, okay, we have some new special event minis that cycle in, and then these minis are going to go on our My Mini Factory store, and you can then buy them there and get them as well. So they are not, let's say, I don't want to say they're not exclusive models. They're time exclusive models. Whatever. There is a period of time where you can win them, and then after that, you can buy them normally, like any other models. And right now, you could have won them in the writing jam. And actually, we have 3 people that I guess I should mention. So the writing jam, you can go to if you go on our website, we made a news post about it. When was this, like a week ago or something like that, where you can go and read all the stories. But the top 3 stories were Fragment Recovered from a Derelict Life Pod by Sup Nerds, won first place. Congratulations. Then we have The Flight of the Albertson by Nerevin. Again, congratulations. And then finally in third place, we had The Four Men's Plans by Dampier. That's an interesting name. So yeah, congratulations to the 3 winners. There are 31 stories, so go check them out. Go have some fun. And yeah, the next event is going to be on December 8th. So on the weekend of December 8th to December 10th. So save the date, go to itch.io and sign up for it already now. Yeah, you'll have a chance to win some minis. And yeah, that's the writing jam. Okay, let's move on to the next thing. So what do we got? Oh, the AOF World Book. So I feel like every month I kind of like present this, but I think it's important. So we are working on the Age of Fantasy World Book. What is the Age of Fantasy World Book? We're actually working on one for Miller Fisher as well, but now let's talk about the Age of Fantasy one. So the Age of Fantasy World Book is basically going to be a free book that we release. It's going to be available on our website. Probably it's going to be available in early access on Patreon for a bit before it goes out on our website. Actually, it's very nice to release things on our Patreon in early access because, yes, on the one side, we get to give those fans that actually support us, monetarily, a bit of a sneak peek about what's coming next and early access. But also, it's really helpful because we're able to get that very critical first feedback where it's like, hey, I don't know, maybe there's some grammatical errors here, or maybe there's some image that is cropping out of the frame there, or maybe there is some section of something that is not very clearly understandable, and then we get to fix it, and then it goes out to the public, and then basically everybody wins. And so yeah, the Age of Fantasy World Book is basically going to be a book that contains everything you need to know to get yourself started into the lore of Age of Fantasy. So it's going to talk about the kind of like the background history of the world of Age of Fantasy, how things come about. It's going to have a nice map that kind of like shows you the places. It's going to talk about the major events, the major locations. It's going to talk about how do things work, how is society, how is the different cultures, how does magic work, how does communication work, how does whatever, how do void gates work, and how do the different planes work, and the planar structure, and a lot of things, and it's basically going to give you all the it's going to give you all of the lore that you need to be able to essentially use our setting as a sandbox to have fun. And next time you're fighting a battle on the tabletop, actually do something that's canonical, or spin off some concepts that we gave, and actually play something that is fully set within the Age of Fantasy universe, rather than just hey, here's a generic battle of some beastmen versus some ratmen, and they're in a forest and they're fighting for, I don't know, capture point A, B, and C, right? And now you're actually going to be able to say, like, okay, oh, this battle is happening here, and it's happening at this time because of this, and this is, and these is all connecting it. And especially for something like, if you're running a narrative campaign, or a slow grow campaign, or all these type of things with your friends, I think it's going to be especially cool to have all these extra resources and all of this extra lore to really bite into. One thing that's interesting is that over time, the amount of content we want to put into this book is continuously growing, which is very cool. I said cool again. Take a shot. But yeah, which is very cool, and yeah, it's actually interesting to see how it's been evolving from a essentially, when we first idealized it, it was sort of meant to be an art book, a coffee table art book, where it was just going to be, you know, uh, 50 pages or whatever, 40 pages of art with a couple of descriptions. And slowly over time, it has grown into having, yes, there is still a big focus on art, but it's like, okay, let's actually give you, you know, enough lore in combination with the art, you can really go somewhere, and you can really you can really get into it, rather than just some tiny descriptions that tell you what a piece is about, and not much more. And yeah, and we think it's the perfect way to complement your war games, your skirmish games, and also other things, right? If you're playing RPGs, and you want to use right now OPR doesn't have an RPG, but if you're playing something like D&D, and you want to put your campaign in the Age of Fantasy universe, feel free to do that. Actually, you could do probably a combination where it's like, oh, like I'm playing an RPG, and then I'm setting in the Age of Fantasy universe, and then when an encounter happens, I play Age of Fantasy skirmish, and now it's like you're kind of like connecting all the dots, and um, and do some fun stuff there. Anyway, I got derailed. This piece of art is basically about, so in the Age of Fantasy world, there's basically this concept of different planes of existence, and you can travel between basically vastly different places through these sort of portals called void gates, and in within the book, we're kind of like showcasing like a bunch of different ideas of like random places that you could go, and this one is essentially showing a sort of like goo world. So imagine that you and your party or your army or whatever are going through a portal, and suddenly you end up in this sort of strange underground world that's just made of weird goo, and there's weird creatures and interesting artifacts to find, and who knows, maybe ancient civilizations and other mysteries, and who knows, I don't want to go too far into it, but um yeah, that's one piece of art basically showcasing this world, and you can really see this sort of like gooey sort of underground situation with lots of different weird creatures and stuff. Really great piece of art. It's simple but effective. I really love it, and yeah, and you can expect this book to be filled with lots of art, to really let your imagination run wild. Okay, next up, let's talk about, okay, still within the lore. Sorry, my nose is super itchy. Still within the lore, in part. So short stories. So we've been working on short stories for a long time. And by now we actually have been able to amass like a nice backlog, where we're starting to feel more and more confident that we can actually go ahead and start releasing, and continue to release at a good pace. Actually, just today I had a call about organizing and making new sections on our website to properly be able to organize this content, because one of the issues that I feel that we have at OPR with our website and with our Patreon and with our My Mini Factory and with our Only Games and with our Drive Through RPG and all that stuff is that right now we make a lot of content, and the content is kind of like scattered through a million places, and it's really hard for people to find one place where you can have a more through line that connects all the content. And so we want to make sure that our website is ready to really carry, so to say, short stories before we start just pushing them out. And yeah, once we got that going, you're gonna be getting short stories every month. There's gonna be a fantasy story and a sci-fi story every month. And yeah, and here I just wanted to kind of like present one of the fantasy short stories. This one's called A Taste of Action. It's a short story from Age of Fantasy, actually. And yeah, basically, A Taste of Action shows it's the story of a young Ratman scout. It's almost a bit of like an initiation story, and it's a young Ratman scout um, hunting down a Vinci artifact. Yes. Again, I don't want to go too far into it. I don't want to spoil things, um, but yes, this is a fun story. It's about, yeah, let's say it's an initiation. Let me put it that way. And yeah, the gorgeous piece of art, of course. This is going to be the cover, and then we're also going to make sure that the art may be somewhere inside the story. I'm not sure. We're still organizing that a little bit. And yeah, looking forward to releasing this as well. I think it's going to be absolutely awesome once you get it. All right, then. Okay, cool. So we've gone through that initial studio updates part. By the way, there's lots of things always happening in the studio. There's so much content that is being worked on, and unfortunately, a lot of the content that we're working on is not fully ready for release. And in due time, once it will be released, you will get it, and it will be amazing. So yeah, so lots of things happening. I'm showing you just a small sliver of what is happening and what you're going to be getting. But okay, let's go into the previews of the models you're going to be getting next month. I mean, in 4 days actually. So this 4 or 5 days, yeah. Okay, starting with the Human Empire. So Human Empires, what are you gonna get? You're going to get the Captain on Pegasus. The Captain on Pegasus comes as always male-female version. You're gonna get a version with a lance. You're going to get a version with a sword. And I think this was quite a fun model, kind of to make, because it's a horse, but it's not just a horse, right? It's a Pegasus, and actually we are adding elements, design elements from the faction, of course, into the model. And the idea here, although you cannot really see it from this angle and in this particular render, but the idea here with the Pegasus was that we are going to put like a sort of like cover on the mouth that kind of looks like a beak, to sort of represent the air/eagle element that the Pegasus falls under. So that's a very cool model. But all right, around the Pegasus, you can see a ton of models and a ton of very different models. So let me explain what this is. So until now, still in V2.50, there is a unit in the Empire called the Militia. And when we decided to tackle the Human Empire, we decided to basically take a bunch of units from the army and essentially refluff them into something that's more of ours and something that we want to take into the future. And so in the world of Age of Fantasy, the Human Empire used to be uh, basically the greatest empire that there was in Tyria, and it was spanning all the way from the heartland, the center of Tyria, all the way to the top, and basically all the way to the north, and then all the way down to the south and to the desert lands and whatnot. And yes, over time this empire kind of crumbled, but still there are good relationships with humans from all around this world. And the militia unit is being refluffed as a mercenary unit, as are other units. And here we really wanted to show many different basically many different cultures that are human and that are outside of the empire. And who knows, maybe in the future we will go deeper and make actual factions out of these, and and whatnot, and just kind of like showcase that there's all of these different cultures that the empire used to be part of the empire, and that now are still here, and that sometimes will go and help out and fight with the empire and whatnot. So you're actually getting 5 completely different models within one unit, which is always great because it's more work for us. But yeah, you're basically getting a sort of pirate themed one. You're getting a sort of desert themed one. You're getting a sort of musketeer one. You're getting another more sort of like medieval one. And yeah, there's lots of stuff here. They all come with different weapon options. They have the option to dual wield pistols, dual wield swords, or have a sword and a pistol in either hand, I suppose, however you want. And the pirate versions even have like a little monkey on the shoulder. So yeah, I thought that was pretty fun. All right, keeping it on. So on the right side here, you can see the wagon, the fire wagon. It's called the beamer wagon. So the fire wagon basically it's from the fire element, and you can see the fire element being represented here. So you can see all of the symbolisms from the fire element. You can see that there's a fire wizard with a cool fire staff. The fire wizard actually has a cool little pipe that she's smoking essentially, and yeah. So the way that we kind of envision this is she has this sort of like arcane library behind her, and then she grabs a book from there, and if you see in the front, she has a sort of little like pedestal, and you basically place your wizarding book there, and then behind it there's like all of these candles, and she chants some sort of spells through the book, through these candles, and into this sort of device that then focuses essentially a beam of energy that then goes and sets your enemies ablaze. And actually you can see that on top of the device there's like a little salamander. Yeah, so okay, another thing, yeah, we're going to the last 2 things that are coming out this month. Wait, 1 2 3 4 5, yes, correct. So all right, we're gonna have, I think these are our last 2 artillery pieces that we are releasing for the faction. Now it's funny that because the Empire has so many artillery pieces, I think it's 5 in total, we have kind of been spreading it out throughout many months. And so the octopus theme of the engineering part of the Empire has kind of really come through. And I've seen lots of people asking, like, why are there so many octopus around the thing? And it's, so don't misunderstand, like, the octopus part is only the engineering part. So only your artillery pieces are really related to the octopus. So when you have your army, I mean, unless you have a ton of artillery pieces, the actual octopus element is going to be it's going to be the least represented element in the army. So, for those that are worried that suddenly it's a fully octopus themed army, it's not. It's just that they have lots of artillery pieces, and all the artillery pieces are related to the octopus. And yeah, so on the left side, we can see the rocket battery comes with, a bunch of rockets, um, an octopus thing at the bottom, kind of like crawling there, which I think is very interesting. Of course, comes with a crew. Both of them, of course, come with a crew. Different poses, male, female, all the stuff that you know. They also come with buddies. So I think each one of the artillery pieces comes with a little buddy, and octopus themed, of course. And then on the right, you can see the mortar, which looks like a sort of, it's sort of, I don't know how to call it, like a twist. It's filled with like these twisted octopus tentacles, which really, make the theme come through. And yeah, we're actually getting to the end of the Empire line. So this is September. Then in October, we actually have the last month of the Empire. And then in November, yeah, I think it's already November. In November, we already have a new army. So it's time flies. Like, I remember when we were first releasing the Empire, and we said, oh, it's gonna be like a 6-month release, and some people were like, oh my god, 6 months of humans, how are we gonna do this? And here we are, and the 6 months are almost over already. And yeah, I'm actually really happy and really proud with how the Empire came out. And yeah, I feel like we really needed a after 3 years of releasing non human. I mean, Da Vinci, I suppose. I don't know. Da Vinci are so ironclad. I never, almost don't consider them human. After not really having a central human faction, I think it's very cool that we finally have one in the game, and that, I guess in some ways, in any game that we do a a central human faction always feels like I don't know, like I guess it's like a center point from which we all can relate to these worlds, right? Because I mean we're humans, as far as I know. So yeah, it's very cool to actually see it fully fleshed out and in there. And now we're gonna spend a bunch of time on other stuff, so that's also kind of cool. All right, so next up, we got the Dwarf Guilds. Okay, let's go, baby. So Dwarf Guilds, super excited about these, if you can't tell. Finally, the models are coming out in September. So Dwarf Guilds, this is a faction I've been looking forward to for the last 2 years. So I know that, of course, there's always going to be people that say like, "Oh, you're just jumping on a bandwagon. You're doing dwarves because other people are doing dwarves." But I would like to remind everyone that Dwarf Guilds, as a rule faction, have been in OPR games for 8 years now, and we have had concept art for them for 3 years now, and we had planned to release these already, for 2 years, and then it happens that other companies have released dwarves, and everybody started releasing dwarves. But it is what it is. That's not under our control. We had no idea that was going to happen. Um, and yeah, this was our plan all along, and I'm actually very happy to come out and make these. And yeah, I actually really like that. I feel so. When making these, we also looked around at kind of like, since we made the concepts about 2 years ago, we kind of looked around and said, okay, well, how has the landscape changed? Like, could it be that maybe by now there are lots of people making very similar models? And to our surprise, like, the type of aesthetic that we're going for is surprisingly non existent in the wargaming world. So yeah, we're very happy that we actually managed to keep making something very unique. So all right, let's go and check out what you're getting in September. So if you look at the very bottom, you can see essentially this is the rune master. So the guy that's holding the dwarf that's holding like a book and a sort of like anvil, hammer, staff thing. So this is the rune master. It's basically the psychic equivalent for the dwarf guilds. And yeah, it's a nice model that has he has these sort of like she, all the models always male female, don't worry about that. He has a special anvil hammer. He has this sort of backpack where he has these big magical rune plates, maybe plates, discs. No, they're not discs. Plates, let's call them runes, whatever. And so you can paint those really nicely and make the glowy runes. And in the back, actually, he has like this sort of like crystal backpack with all of these like funky special crystals. So yeah, a very cool caster model. Then a little bit above him to the left, you can see basically at the center of this image, you can see the champion, so the dwarf champion. So this is your, let's say, your basic dwarf hero. Now, one of the important things that we were thinking when designing the dwarf guilds was that it's very easy for us. It's actually quite common within the OPR miniature ranges that we use capes. We do enjoy capes. It is what it is. But for the dwarf guilds, we thought, okay, having dwarves with capes doesn't really work. So let's generally avoid capes. But for the heroes, let's give them some nice capes. That's going to feel very, um, dwarven hero-y, if that makes. But yes, anyway, so you're gonna have the champion. The champion comes with lots of options, male, female. He has a special backpack. I think it has the option for 5 melee weapons plus a shield, and I think 5 or even more ranged weapons. I think it has like a pistol, a rifle, a shotgun, an iron pistol, an H pistol, a flamer pistol, I think, a plasma pistol. I think an iron shotgun, an iron blaster, lots of weapons. Very nice model. And actually, so to the left and right of the champion, you can see the the dwarf buddies. So right now, actually, I just realized like we don't really have a name for the buddies, but basically, we want to keep fun elements within our factions. Of course, optionally, not everybody has to use these. And we kind of thought at first like, okay, maybe we should try and make some really small creature that can maybe be crawling on a backpack or maybe like on a shoulder or something like that. But yeah, I don't know, something about it didn't feel right. It was like, what are we gonna do? Are we gonna do like a little spider? Maybe that feels too spidery. Or maybe are we gonna do like a little alien? Maybe that's not gonna really fit their theme. And then we kind of thought like, well, what really makes sense within this concept of the mining thing? And so in the end, we ended up with a sort of interesting mix of it's a sort of armadillo slash mole slash turtle creature. I don't know what else to call it, but anyway, there's buddies. They're cute. They're about half the size of a dwarf, so they're actually pretty small. I think there's going to be 7 of them that you can collect throughout the entire miniatures range. And for sure, in the future, we're also going to find more ways to integrate them in in other miniatures and whatever in the line. Actually in the first month you're getting already 3 of them. So on the left one, I think it's the one that's coming with the basic warrior, so it's a buddy on top of an anvil. On the right you can see the one that's coming with the rune master. So the idea here is that it's a buddy like pushing a box filled with books, or maybe filled with those rune stones and whatever. And there's a third one, but we're going to look at it in a second. So what else are you going to get? You're going to get the Rune Master. You're going to get the Champion. You're also going to get the basic Warriors. So the Warriors, this is a ton of models. So the Warriors come with, all right, you're going to have 5 combat poses. As always, male and female. Then you're going to get a heavy weapons pose. You're going to get a sergeant pose. And you're going to get a medic pose. Plus, there's also like the option for these little scanners that you can put on their backpacks. They have lots of weapon options. They come with rifles, they come with iron blasters, and they come with shotguns. And I think the sergeant also comes with a variety of like hand weapons, pistols, and pistols, and I think like a pick, a sword, an axe, a gauntlet. I think it comes with all these options, a hammer, whatever. And then on top of that, you're also getting the heavy weapon guy or girl, of course. And I think that one comes with 3 more weapon options. So I think it's a missile launcher, a machine gun, a rail cannon. Yeah, there's lots of stuff. We're gonna have to browse here throughout this variety of things. Oh, and there's also special weapons, of course. So there's a fusion rifle, there's a plasma rifle, there's a flamethrower, there's an H rifle. I think there's also like an iron shotgun somewhere in there. So lots of options. Yeah, let's already go to the next slide. Yes, so more weapon options here that we're seeing. Yes, there's a rail cannon there on the right. You can see the plasma rifle on the right. I'm trying to see where the other heavy weapons are. Okay, so if you look in the middle, you can see a sergeant actually with like the pick at the top. And then on the right, you can see a medic. So the medic comes with a nice little backpack and like a syringe. Oh, and by the way, they have not just male and female head options. They also have helmet options. And the cool thing about the dwarves is, so when we were making the dwarves, we thought, okay, well, the most one of the most iconic thing about the dwarves in a fantasy setting or a sci-fi setting or whatever is that they have these big beards, right? And then we thought, well, but if you have a sci-fi dwarf where you put on a helmet, like how do you really show this beard in a way that works? At first, we thought you could maybe just have like a gap and the beard comes out of the armor, but then we thought, okay, whilst that is kind of cool, it doesn't really. How would that really work in in an alien setting where maybe there's no oxygen or whatnot? There's no breathable air. And so instead what they have is they have these sort of like breathing tubes that go from their helmet into a device that's on their belt. And the way that these tubes move and connect throughout from the helmet to this device actually looks like a beard. So we managed to find a way to make essentially to give dwarves beard without giving them beards, at least with the helmet on, which I think is very cool. And it's absolutely unique. I have never seen this before. I have looked around, I couldn't find it. So hey, you're getting something completely new here with OPR, which is one of our goals. Okay, so except for this, apart from the 2 heroes, the 2 buddies, this enormous variety of warriors, you're also getting more stuff because OPR is crazy. So what else are you getting? All right, so on the top left, you can see the supports. Okay, so the supports are heavily armored dwarves. Actually, the supports are in the game, they're toughness 3. And so they're actually like within their armor, they're a little bit bigger than regular dwarves, so they feel nice and chunky. They come with lots of weapon options. They come with missile launchers, machine guns, autocannons, rail rifle, I think. No, they have a thing called like a beamer weapon. They come with a mortar. They have lots of options, like I said. And they also come again, male, female helmets, heads, of course. And their helmets are really cool. They're these sort of like welding mask looking helmets. And that's actually a really cool design element that you're going to see in other places throughout the faction. In the middle of them, you can actually see a little buddy playing Jenga with a stack of mines, which we thought was really funny. And then on top right, you can see the APC. Now, don't be fooled by the APC that you're seeing here, that there is only one. You're actually getting lots of options for the APC. So the APC comes with options for, I think it's 6 different weapons mounted on the turret. You can, of course, make it without a turret. It also has like these headlights in the front, which can be replaced with rifles. And it's filled with detail. It's filled with like tools and items around. And in the back, it has a sort of like door that has like a beautiful pattern on it. And yeah, it comes with lots of options. I think it's like it has a missile launcher, it has an anti-aircraft launcher, it has a machine gun. I think it has a minigun. It has I think maybe a heavy fusion rifle, maybe a heavy flamer. Check out the rules if you're curious. Everything that's in the rules is here. So yeah, an exciting first month. By the way, I kind of realized, I thought that maybe I should put this up. Like, I kind of realized that the dwarves are actually quite a short release. They're going to be around 5 months long. So it's very exciting to work on them. At the same time, I almost already feel sad that they're going to be gone so quickly. So yeah, they're going to be out for what? September, October, November, December, January. And then by February, you're already getting a new army. And let me tell you this, we're already working on the concepts for that army. Well, multiple armies, truly, but for the army that I think is going to be the next army. And be excited. Let me tell you that. Be excited. All right, let's go to the next thing. We've dwelled enough on them. So, okay, so apart from all of these dwarves and all of those humans, what are you also going to get next month? You're going to get a legendary. And as always, the legendary is crazy, but this month we went extra crazy. So this month's legendary, honestly, is so crazy. It's basically 2 legendaries. So this is what we're calling the chimeric summoning. So the idea here is that you basically have this vehicle that there's a crazy driver there at the front. You can see like just steering. And this vehicle is driven into battle. And at the top of it, there is 5 unique platforms for each one of the elements of the empire. Each one of them has a different, unique wizard that it's not a wizard that you already got from the Battle Mages pack. They're completely different in that like they have their new poses. They're made to fit on this thing. So you're getting the platform, you're getting the wizards, and you are getting the Chimera. And so let's go check out the Chimera. And so here you can see the Chimera. Well, actually here let's take a look first around. So you can see actually there is the 5 unique altars, each one for a different element. Each one comes with their own special items and stuff. Each one comes with a different wizard. Actually, when designing the 5 wizard or when concepting the 5 wizard, each one actually is making a pose that represents the shape of the element. Honestly, a lot of work went into this. It's kind of crazy. And yes, and then finally in the middle you have the actual Chimera. And so even with the Chimera, we are combining again the 5 elements of the empire. So going from top to bottom, at the bottom you can see, going from bottom to top, sorry, you can see that at the bottom it has the tentacles of the water element. In the center, the main body is the salamander from the fire element. The head is a mixture of the boar from the earth element and the lynx from the ether element. And then all the way at the back, you can see the big wings that are part of the hawk. So yeah, absolutely crazy. And some people had already asked me like, oh, is do they come together? Do they come separate? So they come separate, and actually, the idea is that this platform is already being designed in such a way that as we release other summoned creatures, you can swap them out and you can put them on there. So, hint, hint, there's going to be other creatures in the future. Oh, by the way, also we have hidden 5 buddies throughout the thing. You can actually easily see that there is a links here, but there is 5 buddies otherwise hidden in different places off the platform. So have fun finding them and spotting them. And I think that's actually going to be a really cool element where, like, once you actually build it and paint it, and you put it on a shelf, and then some of your friends come by and check them out. It's like, oh, they spot like, oh, down here there's this little guy hiding, and I thought that's very cool. Now, somebody asked, will there be rules for the platform? So, I've been debating this a lot. The original plan was that there would only be rules for the creature. And I'm going to be honest, I think there's going to be only rules for the creature. I am considering possibly making rules for the platform itself, but it's simply not really designed to be something that you play as in the set in a tabletop. It's more something that you play with. So it comes with 5 wizards. You can take those 5 wizards, you can use them individually as wizards, or you can use them in the battle mage council, whatever it's called, the wizard council unit. It has the Chimera on top, of course. You can use that one independently. And then you can maybe you're playing a skirmish game, you can use this platform and have people fight over it and stuff like that. I am open to the possibility of giving the actual platform some rules. I'm gonna be honest, unless somehow I find a solution that feels really fitting with the setting and with the games and all that stuff, then maybe, but I'm very doubtful. So yeah, think about it more like when you're getting this legendary, you're getting the Chimera, like playable. You're getting the Chimera, and you're getting 5 wizards. Yeah, cool. So all right, with this we are done with all the previews for next month. So let's go check out the previews for the month after. So for October. All right. So Human Empire for October. So yeah. So, like I mentioned before, October is actually the last month of the Empire. So, we're kind of wrapping up and getting the final units that we're missing in the army. So, first up, you're going to get the Cleric. The Cleric basically is one of the few Ether themed units in the game beside Wizards and stuff like that. Because Ether is actually it's not such a battle focused element within the lore of the Empire. And anyway, you're going to get the Cleric. The Cleric comes in different options. It comes in 2 different poses, male, female. I think it has different weapons as well for different poses. And yeah, and overall, it's like a cool, um, you know, um, main battle line type of hero. The boost he provides is basically the very melee and charge focused. So he's the perfect hero, for instance, to put in a unit of warriors or maybe great swords or maybe fanatics, and just really like go and charge at the front. And I really love this this idea of like he's reading from some sort of book and screaming or singing some sort of chant or whatnot, and charging into battle with his flail. Um, yeah, very cool concept here. Then we have the hunters. So the hunters again. So we are now retheming some of the units to be part of this mercenary concept. So the hunters are also going to be mercenaries. So they're actually, I think that in the rules even they're going to be renamed to mercenary hunters. And so yeah, you're gonna get 5 completely different hunters, each one themed around a different part of the former empire, the former full empire of the empire, I suppose. The regions of the former regions of the empire. And actually, so this one is very cool because you're gonna get 5 models with bows and stuff like that, and you're also going to get a little dog that actually hunted a duck. So you're gonna basically get a dog with a ducky. So if you like duckies, well, It's gonna be a dead ducky. I'm gonna be honest, but if you like duckies that are dead, um, you're gonna enjoy these. Okay, let's move on. Then you're going to get the guard knights. Actually, like I saw a lot of people asking about, like, oh my god, did you guys forget about the guard knights? Of course, we did not forget about any unit in the army. And so you're also going to get the guard knights. The guard knights truly are, a more elite version of the knights. They're going to come with 3 combat poses, the 3 command poses. You're going to get them with the open helmets, the closed helmets, the male versions, the female versions. I think these guys are armed with I think they have lances and shields or great weapons, so they get different hammers and different like axes. And I think maybe even there's like a great sword somewhere in there. Maybe the sergeant has it. I don't really remember. And yeah, very very a more elite version of the knights, and a cool unit. And then let's go to the final wagon. Yeah, this is the final release. Crazy. The final wagon of the Empire. This is the air wagon. So I think it's called a Hurricane wagon. And the idea here is that we're going to basically have this big, sort of like mechanical eagle or metal eagle in the back, and the idea is basically that the wizard essentially animates it to flap its massive wings and then charge with magic, essentially create tornadoes that go and destroy the enemy. Think about it a little bit like Pidgey. Pidgey, is that what it's called in Pokemon? That he's doing gust of wind or whatever. Yeah, and yeah, you're gonna it flaps. Well, the model doesn't flap, but that's the concept. And finally, the last thing we're going to be releasing for the Empire, of course, is the General on the Dragon. This is an awesome model, really an awesome model. I think it's the first time that OPR is doing a dragon. I don't think it's something that people have been asking for us for years to do, and finally we had the opportunity to do a dragon. And so, of course, you're going to get an epic dragon. Big model, awesome pose, big ass wings. General in the back. General also comes with multiple options. I think it comes with a great sword, no, a sword, and then a halberd. Don't quote me on that. Whatever. Comes with some options. Male, female, of course, as always. And yeah, really cool model. Really cool. The pose is actually different than the one that you're seeing here. It's actually a much more epic pose, a much more threatening pose. Yeah, and I'm very excited to see this model released. And yeah, it's cool also to see that in wherever we can, we really are trying to make things feel connected and lore related and so on and so forth. So for instance, here in the Dragon of the Empire, actually it has like five spikes on top of its head to represent again the 5 elements of the Empire. Which, yes, it's very thematic, and yeah, a great model. This is gonna be great. All right. So then, what else are you gonna get? Oh, well, okay, Dwarf Guilds, right? Let's not forget the Dwarf Guilds. So, second month for Dwarf Guilds, you're going to get a champion, a jetpack champion, whatever, a champion with a jetpack. He's a champion and he's got a jetpack. He flies. Actually, for the we tried something new now with our jetpacks, and I don't know if you're gonna see it now in the concept art, but and the basically, instead of, so usually what we try to do is we provide for jetpack style units, we provide the models in such a way that you can use them either basically on the floor, like their poses are made in such a way that if you use them as they are, you can make them basically running. They look like they're running, or maybe they're about to leap, or maybe they're landing or something like that. But of course, if you want, you get one of those like clear resin, not resin, whatever, those clear plastic sticks, and you can put them there, and now you're going to have flying models. But for these guys, we actually trying something new where we now actually modeled a sort of like cloud that like a jet of smoke that comes out of it and then like forms a cloud at the bottom. Honestly, it looks really cool. I kind of wish we had always been able to use this as a solution, and I think in the future it might be cool to find more ways to use solutions like these. But yeah, so that's the champion, and the champion, of course, leads the Jetpack Warriors. So the Jetpack Warriors are Well, they're warriors with jetpacks. One of the things we were trying to do here is like we kind of like the idea of having the jetpack dudes, guys, girls, whatever, with double pistols. But since we already did the double pistols things with the Blessed Sisters, we thought having them hold double pistols maybe it's not as cool. So instead, what they have is they have gauntlets that have pistols on top. So it's almost like I think Iron Man kind of has a thing like that, where like they're that they have these pistols mounted here, so they can fly around and then pow, 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 and then shoot from the gauntlet. And yeah, so 5 poses, different weapon options. I think they all come with the dual pistol option. They also come with an option for pistol and a pick. And I think a couple of them also come with other special weapon options like a flamer pistol, a plasma pistol, an H pistol, and all that stuff. So yeah, these are going to be very nice models. And then you're going to get the Guardians. So the Guardians are a unit that actually has not existed until now. It's not available anywhere else. It's a completely new unit for OPR. Wherever we can, we try to continuously innovate and add more stuff and more things that are truly unique to us. And so when we're working on the dwarves, we kind of worked on all of these shields, which we thought were very cool. And then we were looking throughout the army, and we realized like actually the only unit in the entire army that has shields is the power suit dwarves, the elite, what are they called, power suit guard, I think they're called, whatever, the guys that are the dwarves that are in power suits. And so we thought, okay, wait, we gotta find some other place to give the dwarves shields. So we literally went with the concept of, well, the dwarves have shields, they create a shield wall, so let's give them a unit that can quite literally do that. So you're gonna get the Guardians. The Guardians is basically a unit of dwarves with shields and a weapon. I think they come with 3 options. They come with shield and pistol. They come with shield and the pickaxe, so basically close combat weapon and shield. They come with pistol and shield, and they actually come with a completely new thing that was nowhere in the army, which is they come with a type of like sort of like spear pike situation. So you can actually have a sort of 300 style, poking with the spear dwarf situation. Um, Interestingly enough, we kind of envisioned these guys, even though they have these shields and the spears and all that stuff, we didn't want them to feel too much just like heavily armored fantasy dwarves. We kind of thought about like, well, in a more sci-fi settings, they should feel a little bit more like almost like riot gear, police force. Not exactly, but that sort of vibe. So their armor is actually it's the same armor that they have that the warriors have, but they have slightly different shoulder pads. They have a lighter helmet. They don't have backpacks, and the idea is that they can more rapidly move out with their shields and form a quick wall and then protect the other troops, and then the rest of the army can come in, or maybe in skirmish they kind of act as a sort of police force or something like this. And yeah, that's the idea. I have to admit, like, I can totally imagine that some people are going to see these guys and think this doesn't feel sci-fi enough for me, and you don't have to use them. And honestly, I completely understand. I think the option with the spears can feel a little fantasy. It is what it is. But I actually think the version with the pistol looks absolutely cool and feels absolutely sci-fi. And yeah, it's awesome. I'm actually very excited that we have a unit that is fully unique to OPR in this army and doesn't exist anywhere else. Okay, let's continue. What else are we going to get? You're going to get the elites. So the elites are, well, actually, the elites are a full-on melee unit that we have in the army. I think they're called the Hammer Elite or the Great Hammer Elites or something like this. Whatever, they're the elites. And so, yeah, the elites are basically dwarves with big-ass hammers. So I think they have multiple hammer types that you can choose from. They have these cool, really tall helmets and these backpacks that give them like a really nice, imposing silhouette. They have the cool like mask, gas mask thing. They have a special one that feels a little less beardy, but still stays within the concept. So they have like a big respirator thing on the on the belly basically, and this mask that goes in. They have these big as hammers. And of course, you can also use them without helmets and male, female, and all that stuff. But yeah, this is a very nice heavy unit. So if you're looking to get smashing, then you can smash away with the hammer elites. All right. And then we go into, I think this is the last unit that's being released then in October, which is the artillery. So the dwarf artillery, it's part of the army. Again, this was one of those, I'm gonna be honest, when we were creating the dwarves, we struggled a little bit with their vehicles. So we had very, very clear ideas of what we wanted the dwarves to look like, and we had an idea of the feeling that we wanted for the vehicles, but the bikes as well, the bike, the trike, the vehicles, the APCs, the artillery, and all that stuff. But when we actually went into concepting, it was a little bit. It was hard to find something that actually felt truly related to the type of dwarves that we were making. We had some cool concepts, but they didn't. They were cool by themselves, but they didn't feel very coherent. Well, anyway, and then we kept working at it, and we found a way to make it work. And so, actually, I really love the way that the artillery gun came out. And yeah, I was actually looking at it today at the 3D model, and it's an artillery piece. So if you come from the Age of Fantasy world, you know this. So it's an artillery piece. It comes with 3 crew members. It comes with like an additional little like energy canister barrel thing. It comes with 2 weapon options. It comes with like machine guns. It comes with heavy fusion cannons. And the idea, by the way, if you see they're tilted upwards, the idea is that whilst of course they can be tilted downwards and shoot at your mainline enemy, the idea is that these are artillery pieces, so they either try to fire a little bit overhead, but more we actually kind of imagine them as being good at like shooting down an aircraft, and getting those things out of the way. But of course, just tilt it down and destroy the enemy, almost like I remember in the Second World War there were these German Flak 88, I think it is, or the Flak Feeling, whatever it was called, and these were anti-air weapons that could also be used as ground things. And I think the Flak 88 was actually also like an artillery piece. Well, whatever. Yeah, so that's it for the Dwarf Guild. So now let's take a look at. Oh no! Sorry, I forgot. There's even more stuff. So you're actually going to get, in the second month, you're actually going to get the Dwarf Battle Tank. So the Battle Tank is similar in design to the APC. So if you have the APC chassis, you can kind of already imagine what the Battle Tank looks like, and it's got the same sort of design. It has a nice big turret on top. It has lots of weapon options for the turret. I think it has like an anti-tank gun. I think it has an anti-tank cannon, a battle cannon. I think it has an option for like twin quad machine guns, fusion weapons. Sorry, I don't have the rules right now here, but whatever. It's got lots of weapon options at the top. It has weapon options at the bottom, right? You can change those like little machine guns and the things. It has the option to put a gunner there as well. So yeah, lots of stuff, and yeah, this is gonna be very cool. So yeah, actually, usually we try to release 5 units per month, but yes, in October the dwarves are actually getting 6 units, it seems. So nice stuff. I hope you enjoy. Okay, so now we're finally done with dwarves. So let's move on to the legendary. Nice. So the legendary for October, we are finally going back to Eternal Dynasty. So Eternal Dynasty, one of our original factions, absolutely in love with it. Gonna be honest, and it's this sort of like feudal Japan slash China slash Korea inspired faction, and we actually haven't made any models for them in a while. So it's very nice to go back and create something for them. And the concept here was that, so I don't know if you ever saw this, like there was this place in Japan where there are these macaques, these monkeys that basically like bathe in these thermal pools. And we said, well, what if we take that concept and we actually make a big ass creature out of that? And so yeah, we have this enormous monkey. I don't remember exactly what it's called. I think it's not called the Monkey Titan. I think it's called like the Macaque Titan or something like that. And yeah, basically, big stompy robot goes big and stompy. yeah, I really love the way it looks and all of the plating that it has, and all of the symbology from the Eternal Dynasty. And yeah, as a legendary model, it will come, of course, with a nice base and with cool effects and stuff like that. And actually, one thing we're going to try to do is, so as many of you have probably seen on Discord, like, over the past year, 2 years, whenever somebody asks when is something being released, we say, oh, when it's ready. And when we say when it's ready, we post this little image of basically like the Eternal Dynasty drones that are carrying, they're carrying some tea, like some little like tea, a little tea set. And the idea is, yeah, we want to actually try to have those models with the little tea set in this thing. Um, that's gonna be fun. And yeah, I'm absolutely in love with this. I think it's gonna be a great model. And I can't wait for it to be made and to come out. All right, now we are getting towards the end of this part of the stream of the concept art preview. But so I mentioned that the Empire is coming out, it's coming to an end in uh, October. So what happens in November? Well, what we already had revealed a little bit, and we're going to go further into it, is we are going to be getting the Vampiric Undead. So another faction that people have been asking for a long time, a faction that we have made. We had been making concepts for this faction for 2 years. I think we made the concepts 2 years, maybe already like 2.5 years ago. And it's really awesome that we are finally getting to make this faction. So I'm in this first preview, or this is the second time I'm previewing it, whatever. In this preview, I want to go a little bit over their general mythology, whatever, their symbology and stuff like that, to kind of like give you an idea of where the faction is going. So yeah, so something I'd already mentioned last month and last stream is that we want the Vampiric Undead to feel, we want them to feel familiar. We want them to feel like something that you can clearly recognize as Vampiric Undead, and vampires and all that type of stuff. But we wanted to make it feel, of course, a little bit more ours. And so when we're looking at references of how to make this work and where to base these models and whatnot, we kind of really looked into um, Central Eastern European, I guess Eastern European folklore, Eastern European styles, Eastern European designs and stuff like that. And we really fell upon these I think they were Hungarian nobility, these illustrations and clothing and armor and decorations of Hungarian nobility. And we really fell in love with that. And so we basically tried to incorporate it here and kind of make it a basis for our faction. So if you look, you can see that there is this sort of like Gothic style scripture that's kind of like represented everywhere. And actually, unfortunately, I don't have a picture of it here. And this is actually based off a real thing where they would have these shields that had all these scripts going around them that look very unique. And yeah, and so then when we were going and we were thinking about like symbols and how do we represent the vampires, we wanted to, yes, we wanted to have something that feels familiar, but we wanted to and by the way, there's lots of things here, like the symbols on the left are the most representative. The stuff on the right, a lot of it is just exploration, because one of the things that we were thinking is like, okay, we wanted to feel like vampires, but we don't want it to be too generic. We don't want to just have something, the very typical thing would be just make it bats, make everything bat themed, give bat wings, give a bat head, maybe put some fangs and stuff like that. And we were like, I don't know, um, we don't really want something that is just so almost cliche. And so here we actually said, okay, let's go a little bit more like, okay, they're vampires. Well, what are vampires all about? So they're about blood and drinking blood. And so truly here, and you can see in the leftmost, the main symbol, you can see essentially the symbol is a chalice with a drop of blood to kind of represent this blood drinking. And then we have multiple different versions of the symbol and permutations of the symbol towards the right. Um, but the main symbol is the one that you can see on the left. Okay, so that's the general symbology. Then let's go to assets. So when we design a new faction, one of the main things that we do at the very beginning of the essentially of the exploration of this faction is we try to think like, okay, how, what kind of assets would be used throughout this faction, and how can we make sure that all of them feel really related to the faction and really related to, as much as possible, of course, related to our lore, related to our style, and related to our stuff. And yeah, and here you can see lots of different assets that are themed around, vampires, and this gothic script, and these you have things that look like caskets, you have chalices, you have sacrificial daggers, um and yeah, and actually here, okay, here you can see something that is very interesting. So if you look on the right, you have general assets, but on the left, we actually have four major categories. So within the vampire faction, there are four major categories. Yes, there's a couple more things, but there are four major categories of humanoid people, creatures, whatever, that are in this faction. So, and this is kind of like, this kind of forms the hierarchy of the vampiric undead within our faction. And so on the top left, you can see, of course, the very top of the hierarchy, which is the vampires, right? So, they're the nobility of this faction. And so if you go down the rabbit hole that is the lore of the vampires, basically the way that it works is, so the vampires were this faction with all of these nobles that essentially were trying to find a way to to live forever, and they kind of struck a deal with these mages, and and said, hey, like, if you give us the who had the ability to become undead or whatever, to extend life forever, and they said, hey, if we give you this, then you give us that. And I don't want to go too far into it, but basically the vampires break their deal, they screw over the mages, and in return, essentially they get a twisted version of what they wanted. So they get eternal life through undeath, but they are vampires now. They are undead, and they're everything that comes with that. So anyway, so on the top left, we can see the very top of the chain, which is the vampires, right? And then on the right, what you can see, well, actually, let's go down. On the bottom, we can see something called the drained. So the drained are the main section of the populace of the vampiric undead. These are basically your workers, your peasants, your main people. And the idea of the drained is basically that the vampires demand, instead of demanding taxes as just like money, they also demand a blood tax. And so basically, the idea here is that the main populace is all really like blood drained, and the vampires actually have all of these these weird devices to kind of like drain them of their blood and stuff like that. And yeah, that's actually a really cool concept. And here's the thing: so when we are looking to making factions, and we're looking to make factions really our own, we basically say, how do we, let's go through the unit list and see what we can change to feel more ours. So in our vampiric undead, the main battle force, the main soldiers, the main archers, the main whatever, are not skeletons. Forget skeletons as your main fighting force or your main basic fighting unit in the vampires. Everybody does it. It's great for them. They can do it. I mean, the rules are there. You can still, make your basic soldiers, skeletons. But for us, the drained become the main part of the army. And so, yeah, your basic soldiers and archers, your cannon fodder, truly, are going to be drained, which really fits within the theme of the vampires, where they don't really care about their populace, and they're just like, hey, give me your blood tribute and go die in battle, and be our main fighting force. Of course, on the top right, as you can see, it says skeletons. So yes, do not worry, there are going to be skeletons in this faction, but the skeletons are going to be more elite fighting forces. So you're going to get basically what they're called the skeleton guard, and these are going to be, yes, they're going to be your mainline skeletons, so to say, but they are more heavily armored. They're a little bit more elite. They're a little bit more badass. They come with everything that you are, they're coming with everything that you would also expect. They come with swords, they come with shields, they come with spears, they come with whatever else, halberds. or whatnot. I'm actually not sure if they come with halberds. I would have to double check, but whatever. They come with everything that you can expect, and of course, if you want to use these skeletons as your main skeletons fighting force in the army, you can. Do not worry. You can of course use skeletons, but if you really want to go by how we are designing the army, then the skeletons are the more elite fighting force. Because the idea here is that the vampires use their main populace just as cannon fodder, and that's the drain, your basic soldier that's just gonna go out there die. In the rules, quality 5 up soldier that's just gonna go die in the field. That's the drain. And then the vampires actually animate skeletons to become their more elite force, and yeah, your more elite fighters. Actually, interesting thing. So we didn't have this before, but yes, people have always asked us for rules for archers. So we are actually going to have archers in the army. Of course, they're going to be archers from the drain, but for the skeletons, we're actually adding a new unit, which is called the skeleton watch, I think, and it's going to be skeletons with crossbows. And so yeah, you're also going to get a ranged unit for the skeletons. And yes, look, I know that for some people, they were hoping that we were going to do a generic thing, like everybody makes generic stuff, and great. If you want something generic, feel free to go out there and find something generic and enjoy it. But at OPR, we want to make something that is truly ours, that feels unique, that feels like it belongs to us. And I think we're really going to achieve it with this. We are considering maybe giving the skeleton watch also the option for bows. So if you do want to have skeleton archers, you might have them as well. But I'm going to be honest, I think the idea of having them with crossbows is much more exciting, feels more elite. And again, why go generic when we can go and do something unique for us? And then finally, on the bottom right, you can see the stitched. So the stitched again is it's a way to make our stuff more unique. So instead of having zombies like you would expect in your typical vampire faction, which is just undead people animated to come out of the ground, zombie, the thing that we know. The vampires actually have this sort of side to them, which is that okay, so they did this deal with this mage or these mages, and then they screwed them over, and they kind of got there in death, and so they kind of got screwed over. But there's a whole part of their faction that is, or a whole part of their society thing, whatever, that is basically trying to find a solution to this problem. That is through basically through experimentation. So there's a lot of there's a theme of experimentation and kind of like butcher body. I don't know how to call it. I don't want to call it body horror, but like there is this kind of like butchery, surgeony, experimenty side of the faction, and this is basically stitched. So the stitched are, instead of them having zombies, what they do is when there's a bunch of dead people that are all cut up, they will basically saw them back together and animate them back to life. And so they're zombies, quote unquote zombies. We call them the stitched. In the rules, maybe they're just going to be called stitched zombies, so people still know which unit is what. Don't worry. We're always going to be trying to make sure that people can understand what's going on. But yeah, so basically, instead of being undead that come out of the ground, they are they're basically jarbled together, stitched together creatures. If you think back to Nightmare Before Christmas, if you know it, there's a character there called Sally, and in some ways you can imagine something like that, right? Somebody that's literally stitched together from different body parts. And yeah, so these are basically the four mainline types of units of the vampiric undead. Of course, you can expect a bunch of other stuff. You can expect there to be ghouls, although actually now the ghouls are kind of like related to experimentation, so we're doing something interesting there as well. You can expect a bunch of bats and bat beasts and bat horrors and bat dragons and all of that. That stuff. There's going to be wolves, zombie wolves. There's going to be werewolves. There's going to be werewolf heroes. There's going to be a couple of wagons. There's going to be a dragon, a nice dragon. there's going to be, trying to think, what else there is. Oh, important thing. We are currently very much considering that we are going to be removing the ghostly elements from the vampiric undead. Right now we have amazing ideas for our ghostly undead, which are their own separate faction, and all of the units from the, basically all of the units that are ghosts in the vampiric undead, which are coupled. There's, I guess it's like 3 units. It's I think it's the wraiths, it's the wraiths, it's the something else, reapers. I don't know. Whatever. Those are basically going to be kept in the ghostly undead, and for now, we have no plans to release them as part of the vampiric undead. So again, trying to kind of like separate things and make the army a little bit more compact, make the army a little bit more, um, make it more solidified and unified behind, this central theme, and yeah, so that's it. And now let me move on to, oh, we have some weapons. Oh my god, okay, I feel like I've talked a bunch. We're almost 1 hour and a half in, and I'm not even at the main event. Okay, here we have a bunch of weapons. I mean, I don't know, take a screenshot, enjoy them. So you can see some swords, you can see some maces, you can see some spears, some bows. Everything is kind of like vampiric undead theme. You can see the script, the gothic strip, um, everywhere. You can see different types of shields. You can actually see the crossbows at the bottom right. So probably the crossbows are going to be related to that. Um, yeah, that's the weapons. And yeah, and so now I knew that once I finally revealed that we are not doing basic skeletons, some people are not going to be super excited about that. But how about I will show you what our skeletons actually look like. So here we are. I'm actually going to show you a unit. So this is the pre-concepts for the skeleton guard. Um, I think they look absolutely badass. So they have a very specific type of armor. So in the vampiric undead, the armor is kind of always slightly corset shaped. We wanted to have that shape in the faction to kind of show the elegance of the vampires, and you can actually see that slight shape reflected here in the skeleton. So this is a skeleton guard. You can see what the helmet is going to be like. You can see already them holding a weapon. You can see the shield. Actually, we are right now we're working on making both male and female skulls, and possibly maybe even different entire female bodies, because we noticed that like nobody really seems to be making female skeletons, and we were like, that's a missed opportunity. So of course it's stylized, and it's made for a war game and stuff like that. But we thought like, hey, if we are trying to get male female representation across all armies in the games, why don't we do it for skeletons as well? So yes, you're going to get male and female skeletons as well. And then of course I'm going to show you the full thing. So bam, you can see the um the skeleton guard here. I actually really like that in some ways we're kind of very literally taking the idea of like the skeleton guard, and this guy has like a little chain filled with like keys. So maybe they're kind of like locking people up and stuff like that. On the top right, you can see different variations of the heads. You can see the helmets. You can see one with just like a hatchet straight into its skull. And you can see one with some sort of like chain mail sort of thing, or whatever this is called. So again, yes, I have announced that we are not having mainline skeletons, but do not worry, you're going to get your skeletons. It's just essentially the thing that's happening is just what is currently called skeleton warriors. It's going to become what are they called? Drained soldiers, right? And so if you want to use skeletons, use them there. It's absolutely no problem. Enjoy it. And we're going to give you skeletons to use them for that. Don't worry. But if you want to follow the OPR lore and the OPR stuff, here we go. We are providing you with an option. All right. So we are an hour and 20 minutes in. We have quite a big audience. We're like 120 people. So yeah, I guess let's talk about third edition. So third edition, September 8th. That's the official release date. So it's in 2 weeks. So it's 1.5 weeks. It's the Friday after the next. So next Friday, you're gonna get third edition. That is third edition for all of our 5 mainline games. So Grimdark Future, Firefight, Age of Fantasy Skirmish, and Age of Fantasy Regiments. Very excited about this. Everything is going to be updated at the same time. So Army Forge is going to be updated at the same time. You're going to be able to get the rules and get playing immediately the moment that it's released. You're going to be able to build new armies immediately the moment that it's released. You are going to get everything is being updated. Everything. So all of the core rules, all of the beginner's guides, all of the advanced rules, all of the mission packs, all of the narrative campaigns, all of the expansions, all of the starter sets, all of the extra content, such as the solo and co op rules, or the tournament guides, or the campaign rules, or the mission card. Everything, everything is being updated on September 8th, all at the same time. Now, there will be, of course, a moment where we are doing the transition. So you can expect that, Army Forge is going to be down. I don't know how long it's going to take. We're hoping that it's not going to be more than like a couple of hours. Maybe it's going to be a couple of minutes. I'm not sure. I'm going to be honest. We're still looking into it. So there is going to be a moment where, hey, give us a break. We are uploading files. We're updating rules. We're updating everything. But yes, September 8th coming out. Very excited. And yeah, everything is being updated. You can expect. My God, I'm so excited. Okay. Let me say this. This is a third edition, right? Third edition. Third edition is okay. So I guess. All right. This is the part of the stream. By the way, if you were here just to hear the date, then I hope you enjoyed it. But stick around because we're gonna actually chit chat a lot about third edition a bit, and then I'm gonna go into the Q&A, and then I'm actually gonna answer your questions in the chat. But third edition, why are we doing a third edition? Some people ask me like, why are we doing third edition? That's so unnecessary. OPR doesn't need a third edition. So if you have been following along over the past year and a half, 2 years, we have essentially been in what we are calling now the third edition for the past year and a half. Piecemeal. In very small steps, we have been continuously updating the games. We have been continuously updating. We released Army Forge. We updated Army Forge. We released Army Forge Studio. Everything, slowly. And we started updating rules. We started changing the way some special rules worked. We started changing the way some weapons were. We started rebalancing the units. And it worked, and it was great, and we think it improved the game. But I think one of the problems that we had is that by not really having almost like a cutoff point where it's like, hey, this is the old stuff and this is the new stuff, there has been a lot of confusion. There was also a lot of confusion because we used to have a different website, then we updated the website, then we used to have the Google Drive, then we had the Google Drive in parallel to Army Forge, and it was a mess. I'm gonna be honest, it was an absolute mess. And so yes, third edition, truly, it's a way for us to mark a it's not a new beginning, but to mark like, hey, that period of confusion, it's over. We are now settled. We are fully based on Army Forge. Get the rules on our website. Get the Army rules on our app. Don't worry about Google Drives anymore. Don't worry about V2.50 anymore. Don't worry about V2.16 anymore. It's all going to be aligned, and then we're going to continue from there. Also, another thing that I want to do as part of this change is, of course, there is going to be an initial period where we are going to be tweaking things, probably for the first month or so, maybe even the first 2 months. We're going to be tweaking things pretty rapidly, because I'm assuming that there's going to be grammatical mistakes or weird bugs or maybe a unit that we forgot to update its weapons to a new thing, whatever. And so yes, I'm gonna have to go in there and just like do quick patches, little hot fixes and stuff like that. But the plan is that once that is done, we are going to be switching from updating whenever I feel like it to updating quarterly. So the idea is like, hey, over every quarter for 3 months, I'm going to collect feedback. I'm going to collect, new ideas. I'm going to come up with stuff, blah, 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 blah. And then, okay, at the end of the quarter, boom, here is the update. Patch notes on our website so you can check out everything that changed, get the new stuff, updated version numbers, get the new stuff. Cool. And now for the next 3 months, this is what I'm playing. This is stable. Okay. Play it, provide feedback, let us know what's broken, let us know what's good, let us know what's bad. And then after 3 months, okay, cool. Boom, we're updating. And so on and so forth. Of course, that's, I can never say ever, this is the plan. Who knows how it's going to go? Maybe, for example, if we are dropping a new army or a new unit that we're making models from, and it's happening before this cycle of the 3 months, okay, maybe we'll say, hey, look, we just dropped new models. We just dropped some new models, so we're just updating the rules for that army with that new unit, right? That might happen outside of this quarterly sync situation. But outside of that, yes, I want to keep it more predictable because on the one side, I'm gonna be honest, it's good for me because it makes my life easier. Because by the way, for those that don't know, I am the founder and CEO of OPR. Yes, I lead all of this team and all of these people in making all of this stuff. And at the same time, I am the only game designer at OPR. Like I see a lot of people say like, "Oh my god, the team of the rules team is doing great work, and the team is doing blah blah blah." And it's like I am the team, so I also need a bit of a break. So every 3 months, I will make these updates. Makes my life easier, and also makes it easier to really have that time to digest. Because sometimes we get like situations where there's knee-jerk reactions where something happened, and now suddenly everybody says like, "Oh, this rule is really overpowered." And then time passes, and then we talk about it and we figure things out, and then it turns out, okay, maybe this specific rule was actually not the problem, but it was another rules interaction that was the actual problem. And it's like, okay, let's go and fix the actual problem. And you need time for those things. In any case, third edition, yes, it's a new edition of the game, and we have been posting articles talking about it, and we posted an early preview on Patreon that people have been checking out. And I have seen some of the early feedback of people saying like, "Oh, like, do we need a third edition? What is changing?" Blah blah blah. So as with everything, try before you judge. Because I'm going to be honest, I've been playing third edition now for a while because I made it and I play tested and all that stuff. And it's the same game. It's the same game but refined. So don't expect like, yes, some small things here and there are changing. And in the grand accumulation of many small things, you could say that on paper it does feel a bit like a new edition. But in reality, when you play the game, unless you have some very specific things, you're not going to feel a huge difference. Like the biggest difference that you are going to feel on on every match you play probably is cover. So cover is changing. Cover right now in V2.50 is giving you -1 to hit. In the future, it's giving you +1 to your defense. And that's changing. If you have casters, okay, casters work a little bit differently now. And so yes, you might say, well, that kind of feels like a change. But again, I've been playtesting it a lot, and casters, they feel the same. You have a couple more options now that you had before, but honestly, it's the same thing. You choose your caster, you select what spell they cast, you roll your die, you get the result, and it's casted. So, okay, why are the changes then? So, like I said, on the one side, it's to kind of like have this breaking point. On the other side, of course, it's to fix lots of the outstanding issues that we had in the game. But on the biggest side, I suppose, it's really rebalance to rebalance all of these things that were in the game that were absolutely unbalanced. So one of the major problems that Grim Dark Future Age of Fantasy have or have had so far is that there are so many special rules that give units simply a ton of attacks, and it doesn't matter what unit you have that you're fighting against. If you roll enough dice, you are going to destroy it. And even if you have a unit of, if if you had a unit, so let me give you an example. So flamers are changing, right? So in the old edition, flamers are A6. They just roll 6 dice. They have no AP value except for if you're a heavy flamer. But let's go for a regular flamer. They roll 6 dice. Okay. Now, if you have a unit of 10 support brothers, or well, it was changed, but let's say you have a unit of 6 support brothers with flamers right now, you're rolling 36 dice. Now, it doesn't matter what you are fighting against. You are rolling so many dice that even a powerful tank, a T12 tank with defense 2 plus, if you make it roll 36 dice or however many it is, 30 dice of defense every round, it's just gonna pop. It's just gonna die. There is nothing, and it just feels absolutely wrong. That's not the intention of the game. The game should not be a the game should not be about, hey, let me just find which combination can get me the highest number of dice rolled. That's not what the game should be about. The game should be about using the right unit at the right time against the right enemy, right? Using the tools that you have in your army, using your special weapons, using your special rules, using your casters, using your heroes, using your buffs, using your things in the right moment at the right time against the right enemy, and then you get the result that you want, right? So you should not simply be able to drop 1,000 flamer shots against a titan and take it out, right? A flamer is not meant to take out a titan. But if the flamer rolls 6 dice, then you have a unit of 6 models with 6 of those, that's 36 dice, and now suddenly it's just an avalanche of dice. Now, for sure, this is going to be a moment where, for a lot of people, they're going to have to just adapt, because a lot of units that used to have a ton of attacks are going to be balanced back down to have an appropriate amount of attacks for their toughness value, essentially. So essentially the way it works is we have a threshold of how much damage should each unit be able to deal based on how much toughness their models has. So a basic warrior, a basic skeleton warrior, right? We were talking about skeletons. A basic skeleton warrior should not be able to have a bunch of, like, it should not have dual hand weapons that have an A4 value plus frenzy, which gives +2 attacks, and then suddenly on the charge they have 6 attacks. It's a single basic warrior. It should not have such a huge output of dice. So there is a threshold that we have set of what's the maximum amount of attacks that a unit can have. And now things are balanced around that, which make things, well, more balanced. And the important thing for us is what really happens with this change is that the type of tools you use matter. So before, you could just dish out 1,000 attacks at no AP against a tank, like I was saying, and just destroy. Now, if you're up against a tank, okay, you want your AP2, AP3, AP4. You want your deadly 3, your deadly 6 weapon, right? You want your tool that is meant to be against that. If you're fighting an army that has a lot of regeneration, you want to be bringing rending. You want to be bringing the things that are the tool that is against the enemy that you're targeting, right? If you're attacking a unit of conscripts that has a ton of models, you want to be bringing your blast weapons, right? You want to have a weapon that you roll and it has a lower cost than having multiple attacks, and on a large unit it makes a splash and takes them out, right? And so yeah, everything is basically being rebalanced around these rules. Now, again, I know that for some people this is going to be upsetting. It is what it is. Some people have been, unfortunately, some people in our community have been overly relying on really, really unbalanced units to win their games, right? We have seen this many times. We have discussed this in the community many times. Like, how many matches are just won by who can bring the largest attack spam, right? It just is what it is. A famous example for me was always the Havoc Disciples. What were they called? Havoc Disciples Raptor brothers, which I think each model, I think it was one of those units that, like, each model has 4 attacks, plus with Frenzy, it could deal +2 attacks. Plus, I think they had Rending as well on top of that. Plus, you could give them, I think there was a hero that could give them an additional attack on the charge, and suddenly you had 5 models dishing out 35 attacks per charge, right? And yeah, if you're somebody that relied on that tactic, if somebody that relied on that strategy, these changes are going to be a bit upsetting, because suddenly your absolutely overpowered unit that could destroy everything is not going to be able to do it anymore. So there is going to be a period of adaptation for some people. You're going to have to just get used to it. It is, and it's fine. Play the game, play the new edition, enjoy it. Once you start playing, you're going to realize that, hey, apart from these crazy units, overall the game feels very similar. The very similar. The game is the same. I was literally just playtesting live the other day, and it was like, yeah, like I felt like I was just playing V 2.50, and in a good way, not in like oh, we're not making enough changes, but like it felt good. It felt like I'm playing just a better, more balanced version of the games, and that was the goal, of course. Um, but yes, but so a lot of things are changing in terms of like raw attack output to account for these maximum thresholds, right? So yes, if you got used to having, what was it, like the fanatics, I think I was talking to someone about that, where I think like the fanatics from the Blessed Sisters were like A4 each, plus they had frenzy, which is plus 2 A on the charge, something like that. I don't remember exactly. Maybe it's plus 1 attack on a charge, right? Yes, that is changing. Now those chainsaws are A2, right? So it's 2 attacks per model, and they have frenzy, but now frenzy, instead of giving you an automatic extra 2 attacks, now it gives you 1 extra attack if you roll a 6, and it also gives you additionally 1 AP if you roll that 6 on the charge. So it gives you plus 1 AP on the charge, and if you roll a 6, you get more attacks and all that stuff. So um, yeah, it's sorry. The sound apparently went out, but it should be back. Let me see. Oh, can you hear me now? I think I should be unmuted. Okay, he back. Um, yeah, I feel like kind of I'm going in a loop, but yes, some units that were underpowered are being rebalanced and they're made more stronger. So, for example, one of the big complaints that we had about heroes in Grimdark Future is that a lot of heroes felt underpowered. Like you have this toughness 3 hero that only has a rifle with 1 attack. So those units are actually being boosted. So don't think of it just as like, oh, some units are being nerfed, some units are being nerfed, some units are being boosted, some special rules are being changed. And the plan also is that right now, okay, you're going to get 3rd edition, you're going to get everything as it is, but over the next, I'm going to try and be more realistic. Over the next 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, we are going to be slowly reviewing all the armies, and we're going to essentially like, slightly rebalance the armies. And we also want to make sure that um, we can give the armies the tools that they really need for their army. Let me try and explain this better. So one of the problems that we have right now is that a lot of the, for example, hero buffs, the hero special rules that we have, are literally the same hero special rules that were made 8 years ago for those armies. Like, hey, I don't know, Battle Brothers have always had the war chant rule, which gave Furious, right? And so maybe this is just spitballing, right? But maybe for an army, or I don't know, let me think about. Sorry. Um, Maybe we had an army that had like low quality, right? And an army with quality 5 up that is a ranged army and it really struggles to hit the enemy, right? And maybe right now it has a special rule, like the hero buff is, oh, it gives plus 6 inches range, right? And you're like, dude, why is my army that absolutely sucks at hitting having a boost to its range? It does nothing for my army, right? Whereas in the meantime, you might have an army like Battle Brothers, which have quality 3 up, and they also have a special rule which gives them a +1 to hit. And now suddenly it's like this army that was already strong has special rules that make it stronger, and this other army that is weak has special rules that don't really make it, stronger and more adaptable. So there's going to be a rebalancing. At least there's going to be a first stage where we do a rebalancing, where we really look at like what tools, what kind of gameplay does an army have, and what tools can we give it to basically shape its gameplay into specific things. And we want to do that through tweaking of the units, of the weapons, of the special rules, of the spells. That's a big thing that people have been asking. So yes, you can expect that the spells are also going to be tweaked. And also one thing that we want to do is, this is a thing that people have been, one of the major things that people always mention when we talk about OPR is, oh, like I played OPR and it was great, but all of the armies kind of like, they don't feel very fluffy. The armies don't feel fluffy. And so one thing that we're going to do is we're going to find ways to add a little bit more of a fluffy feel, whatever, to the armies in a non-obtrusive way. So don't worry, there is no stratagems coming. There's no whatever they're called, command points coming. There is no crazy intricate rules coming, right? They're chill. I know that some people are already going crazy hearing about like, oh, fluffing up armies. Chill. That's not happening. All that's happening is we're going to make sure that the armies that currently feel a little generic and a little lackluster have some rules in them that feel slightly more thematic. So I think for me, the let's say the benchmark really is the Dow Union. So in the Dow Union has this very simple rule, which is it has the spotting laser, right? So it has a spotting laser. It's, some units can take a spotting laser. You roll a die. On a 4-up, you mark the enemy, and then you can remove that marker to get a +1 to hit, right? Very simple rule. Everyone here knows it. Everyone here loves it. And everyone says, oh, this army feels more fluffy. Why? Because it has special rules that fit. It has some special rules that are simple, but that fit the gameplay that this army is trying to convey. And so that is the goal with essentially fluffing up all of the armies, like making sure that every army has some special rule, one special rule, two special rules, whatever, maybe a hero rule, something like that, that really feels like something thematic to the army, but that is light enough on the game that it doesn't suddenly become cumbersome, right? So don't expect that, 1,000 tokens, and don't expect that. I mean, sure, there might be the spotting laser does use a token, right? You mark an enemy, you place a token on there. So yes, there might be some minor token usage here and there. Just like, hey, if you're playing with spells and you cast a spell on a unit, you might want to use a token to mark it. So I'm not going to deny that you might need to use some tokens here and there, but the goal is not to be suddenly a token madness where you're having to track CP, and you're going to have to track this, and you're going to have to track that, and you're going to have to track that, and it's just going to be an absolute madness. So yes, refluffing of the armies is coming. This is going to be a bigger step, and it's going to take time. I also think it's something that I would like to do slowly, right? I would like to ideally do slowly, so that we're not overwhelming you. Like, I don't want to be like, hey, tomorrow, by the way, all of the armies have been refluffed, and now suddenly it's like absolutely overwhelming. I want to take it step by step. Also, because I want to really understand where are the boundaries, which are the type of rules that people still feel like this is fluffy, but it's good, and where is the limit, like, hey, like you added this rule, but now it's actually getting more complicated than we want, and tweaking, right? As always, OPR is all a matter of talking to the community, talking to you guys, tweaking things, going back and forth, and and having that thing. And yeah, and I'm gonna be honest, I really love working on these games. I'm very happy to do that, and I'm very happy to have this opportunity to be able to talk directly to my community and tweak the games based on that. No matter what happens, I am paying attention. Don't worry, I'm paying attention. I'm listening to feedback. I'm watching your videos. I'm reading your comments. I'm checking out your Reddit posts. I read, the Discord chats. I read the answers on Facebook posts or whatever, I am paying attention. Don't worry. So if at any point, even with the third edition changes, if at any point there are things that we feel like, okay, maybe we are going in a wrong direction, all right, let's reassess, let's go back, let's maybe revert a change or maybe modify a change. Let's make sure that it's something that works. Okay, I think this was a big roundabout way to talk about a bunch of stuff. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to move on to the next and final section, which is the Q&A. So I will shift. Yeah, this is cool. Maybe like this. Maybe like this. What is this one? No, this one doesn't work. Sorry, just playing around with this. No. All right, this. All right, I'm going to go. So at the whenever we announce a new stream, we always put a form where people can ask questions. I think I have about like 15 to 20 questions to answer from there now. So I'm going to go there. I'm going to answer these questions, and I'm not going to be able to pay attention to the chat in the meantime. So if you have any questions about third edition and armies and games and all that stuff, think about them. I'm going to go and answer all these questions for you guys. Sorry. And then I'm going to come back here, and I'm not come back here. I'm still going to be here, but I'm going to come back to the chat, and I'm going to try and answer. I'm going to try and answer as many questions as I can without going crazy. All right, so the first question was, could you please explain why the mission PDFs are not shared with patrons through more permanent channels? Okay, so this is a question that we get often. I'm going to be honest, this is a question that's answered already on the Patreon Tier 1 post. So if you go and read the post, it will be answered there. But essentially, we want to make sure that we're not flooding these systems. So the problem is if we update, so the mission packs are essentially sliced into 4 missions that we release each month, and these are simply not ready to go up on Drive-Thru-RPG yet. And in order to make it work on Drive-Thru-RPG, we would have to, or My Mini Factory, we would have to create individual items on these stores, and we would have to absolutely pack them and flood them with all of these things. And it's really hard to track. And I'm going to be honest, we already have so many things on our shoulders that it's a mess. So they're just not ready for release. They're not ready for an official thing. They're not ready for us to go and start flooding these systems. So they are available as a download there. I mean, look at on the 4th of the month, you get a notification, right? And it tells you like, hey, go and download the models. So when you go download the models, go download the rules, and then you got them. All right, can you please share some details about the current state of Age of Fantasy Quest and the future plans? Okay, so Age of Fantasy Quest, my God, I hate the development of this game because it's going back and forth for so long, and I wish I had a better situation. But basically, Age of Fantasy Quest. So we developed the core rules quite far. It's pretty interesting game right now, but in order to be able to get the full experience of what we want Age of Fantasy Quest to be, and also in order to be able to properly like tweak things and playtest and all that stuff, we basically need the app integration for, just the same way we have the app integration for Grimdark Future and Age of Fantasy and all that stuff. We need an app integration for Age of Fantasy Quest. Now, over the last couple months, we have been very, very much focusing on the app integration for Age of Army Forge Studio. That was a huge project, and we think it was worth it. Now everybody can create armies, and that's very cool. And actually, like now, over the next couple months, the next 1 or 2 months, we are going to try and get integrations done for a couple of other games, like Grimdark Future Warfleets, FTL, whatever you want to call it, so that we can actually finally have the FTL integration. And then after that, we're going to go back to Quest and do the proper integration and make it work proper. Because one of the things that I realize is, for as much as we would love to do monthly missions and campaigns and all that stuff that is all curated by us, that just requires a lot of work. And we need to make a game that, just like the other games, can stand on its own. And the best way to make this type of game stand on its own is if we can provide all the tooling where essentially can generate missions and quests and campaigns for you, right? So yeah, so that's the situation. So I think it's just I had completely underestimated how much work would have to go into Age of Fantasy Quest when I first decided to make it 2 years ago. And yeah, there are other projects which are uh, well, the reality is there are other projects which are more urgent, which have a bigger request from fans, and which are just if we can get those out quickly first, then we can fully dedicate ourselves to Quest, and then we can probably do something with it. I'm not. I'm gonna be honest. I'm not very happy about the situation. Of course, I wish it was different, but this is just the reality of Age of Fantasy Quest. Um, yeah, that is what it is. But my hope is that once we have all the tooling, once we have all the things, at that point, it's literally just a matter of, hey, release the rules, have the tools, and just get playing. Because the idea is, by the way, that the same way with that. So all of our armies in our games, Grimdark Future and Age of Fantasy, basically have all of their units and stats inside of a database, right? They have all the units, the stats, the special rules, and all this stuff. So we have an enormous library of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of units, thousands of weapons, hundreds of special rules. Like it's an incredibly large library of stuff. And so the idea for Age of Fantasy Quest with the tooling is that once we have it done, all of that content will be automatically adapted and functional for Quest. So once it works on a snap of a finger, you're going to go from there is no content for Quest to hey, here is literally hundreds of models for you to play with, hundreds of units for you to play with, and that's where we want to go. So instead of now sitting down and manually trying to calculate every model and every unit and everything and all the stats and go crazy, which is very, very inefficient. We want to get the tooling done so that it can all be automated, and then you can get an awesome game that that can be automated automatically, updated automatically. Because imagine like if okay, imagine this: we have the Dwarf Guilds, right? Before I was talking about how hey, we added a new unit for the Dwarf Guilds, the Guardians. So the idea is that with this system, once we add the Guardians to Grimdark Future, they're automatically added to Grimdark Future Firefight. They're going to be automatically added to Grimdark Future Quest. Once we have the 10mm games, the small scale games, Commander, they're going to be automatically added to Commander. So it's a cross system, it's a cross game system, right? And that's really the goal with it. Like it's basically making our life easier and giving you an amazing experience where yeah, like I love the idea that you you can buy one model, well, except for you're playing small scale, right? But okay, but you can buy one model or one pack, like, and with that pack, you can say, hey, I'm gonna use these guys to play skirmish, and I'm gonna use them to play. Sorry, I'm gonna use them to play firefight, and I'm gonna use them to play Grimdark Future, and I'm gonna be able to use them to play Quest. And whenever we release other games which are where the miniatures are compatible, I can play those as well, right? Um, we don't we don't want to basically lock you into like just one system. We want to give you lots of options to do your thing. All right. Somebody asked, will the upcoming changes impact the balance of Grimdark Future versus Age of Fantasy games? No. They're just as compatible as always, and actually, in some ways, they're more compatible. So one of the things about changing with third edition is we try to make the language a little bit more consistent across both games. So instead of having the psychic rule and the wizard rule, we have the caster rule. So both games have the caster rule. Or instead of having the units being wavered or wavering and units being pinned, we now have units being shaken. So again, trying to make sure that the language is more compatible between the two games. And also, special rules from Grimdark Future are going to be available in Age of Fantasy Quest, and Age of Fantasy and Age of Fantasy rules are going to be available in Grimdark Future, which I think is very cool. Has the OPR team considered making terrain and larger minis FDM friendly? Okay, so talking about terrain real quick. We are currently in the process of concepting and launching a new terrain project which will be essentially solving many of the issues that we have with our terrain right now. It will be more universally usable. It will be easier to print. It will be cheaper to print. It will be more modularly usable. It will be more cross compatible with other terrain sets and other games and other systems. Um, and yeah, uh, and this system is not designed specifically for FDM. We're going to try to make it as FDM friendly as possible. But the reality is that we polled our audience and stuff like that. And the reality is, like 92% of our audience has resin printers. And I think it was like less than 50% of our audience has FDM printers. And we also asked our audience if they plan to get an FDM printer in the future or a resin printer and stuff like that. And the vast majority of our audience is more interested in resin printers than they are in FDM printers. So we want to make a product that can reach as big of an audience as possible. So this is a resin first product, but we are designing it in such a way that we're going to solve all the major issues that people have with our resin terrain. Yes, expect an announcement at some point. Okay, with rending being a clear counter to the regeneration, how will armies like Plague Demons and Kingdom of Angels be affected? Well, it's basically just different now. So before, rending was completely negating your regeneration, and now it's just lowering your regeneration rules. So it's going to affect them. They're going to be, rending is supposed to be a counter to regeneration. So yes, they're going to have to, they're just gonna have to take the beating of being countered. But they don't have to worry so much anymore about literally not having the regen rolls anymore. Will Army Forge Studio update at the same time? And will the PDF lists come out at 2? Wait, sorry. Okay, I think basically, okay, the answer is yes, if I understand the question. When 3rd edition releases, all the rules will be updated. Army Forge is going to be updated. All the units will be updated. The PDFs will be updated. The Army Forge Studio tools that are given to patrons are going to be updated. Everything is being updated at the same time. With the new edition coming, what will happen to Gang Wars? Nothing. It's still going to be there. The rules are going to be updated to be compatible with 3rd edition, and you can still play it. Is it possible to get back arena games to play with? We don't currently have any plans to bring back arena games. With less melee attacks all around, won't this make melee a very unattractive choice compared to shooting? Well, think about it like this. No, because you're going to have, basically, the units that had way too many attacks are going to be more balanced with the rest. It's not that overall there are less melee attacks, it's that the units that were overpowered are going to have less melee attacks. Also, by the way, don't forget this. Every unit that right now is going to have less attacks than before is also going to be cheaper. So it's not that just melee units that had lots of attacks and that have fewer attacks and they're cheaper. So it's not just like, we're not just removing attacks but keeping them at the same cost and screwing you over. Will there be adjustments to factions with low amount of heroes but a lot of profiles to allow them to take more than 3? Yeah, I think this was specifically asked to me about things like the Jackals. And yes, I think we have added an additional hero for the Jackals. I think we might have added an additional hero for the Jesters. Yeah, I think those were the 2 major ones. So yeah, so yes, that's the answer. I heard mentioned that someday in the far future would like to revisit other armies like you did with the Alien Hives. Have you considered doing so in the background instead of a multi-month focused project? I'm going to be honest, I have no idea. When we get to it, we will decide. Will it be... Who knows? This is literally a plan that's, maybe 5 or 10 years down the road. Who knows where we'll be? Maybe we won't even be on Patreon anymore. Maybe subscription services will be out of style. Maybe we will be releasing things only via our website. Maybe, I don't know. So I don't want to make a decision now based on something that I simply don't know anything about. And then, are there any plans to extend the Ratman Castle and maybe make subsequent larger modular terrain at least slightly compatible with each other so we can mix and match? No, there are no plans for that. And as I was mentioning before, there actually, sorry, I need to get something. There are actually plans to change how terrain is made. So no, there are no. Sorry, there are no plans for making additional types of castles that are compatible with the Ratman Castle and all that stuff. Okay, Dwarf Guilds are looking stellar. Are there going to be any changes to their army, like making weapon options more consistent between units? I know that some weapon options maybe are being shifted around a little bit, but no, I don't think that they're very inconsistent. Like, part of the whole thing about the dwarves is that they kind of have different tiers of weapon. They kind of have the regular, rifles and pistols and whatnot, and then they have the so-called iron weapons. So they have the iron pistol, the iron blaster, the iron shotgun, and stuff like that. And those are just like a heavier version of the weapons, let's say. So, if you have a more elite unit, you can expect them to use more iron style weapons. So it's not that they're inconsistent. It's just it's literally meant to be that way. Do you think that world books will be released by the end of the year? I have no idea. I wish I could give you a date or an approximate. I'm going to be honest. I have no idea, and I don't want to make any plans for that. How long of a gap do you think there will be between world books and the first army books? No idea. Let me just put it out there like this: producing books with tons of lore and tons of art has been a roller coaster ride. And there were moments where I was confident we were almost there, and then there are moments where I'm not confident that we're there at all. And all I've learned is that we need to keep cruising through it, and at some point it's just going to be finished and it's going to be good. To reveal a little bit, we have currently almost fully finalized the Grimdark Future World Book in terms of lore and art, but we haven't fully finished it, but most of it is finished. And we are currently well into the art of the Age of Fantasy book, and the lore is also still being worked on. But the lore writing part is not necessarily the thing that takes that long. The biggest thing is the art. Making art, making sure that the art is good, making sure that the art is consistent, budgeting it correctly within our budget. All of that stuff needs to be taken into account. And the reality is also, like, you have to think about it like this. Our bread and butter is miniatures, right? And whilst, yes, we want to invest into expanding the army, faction books and world books and the lore and the art, and that's all great. We also have, the majority of our company is still focused on making miniatures, making concept art, making all the great stuff that we release every month, making games and all that stuff. And so, yeah, it's just it is what it is. Somebody asked, casting is rather samey between factions. Are there any factional flavor coming? Are any factional flavor coming to some spells, like rats casting dangerous terrain, puddles of poison? Like I said, we are planning on reworking all of the spell lists, but right now there are no plans to give factions specific spells. What we might do, so the way that actually the spells are built is we have a pretty large library of spell types, and then those are, each army then draws from this main list. And I think what we probably want to do is we want to make that list bigger. We want to find more interesting spells that work within the way that we balance spells, and then make sure that they're distributed a little bit better. Because what really is happening, the reason you're seeing it like this is because right now there is like 4 or 5 of these spell types, and almost all armies or most armies use them. And there's just a few of the other spell types that are being used here and there. And I think by balancing it out a bit more, you're going to see less of that repetition, right? After Game Workshop's decision to lock their Army Builder app behind a paywall, there are many OPR fans hoping this won't happen. Can you comment? I guess you mean OPR fans are hoping we won't be locking our app behind a paywall. Yeah, there's no way that we are locking our rules behind a paywall. So the army books are free. They're going to continue to be free. There is no plan for them to ever not be free. The core rules are going to continue to be free. There's no plans to ever stop giving the core rules out for free. The beginner's guide, which explain the rules better, is always going to be free. Some of the advanced content that we release, like the solo rules and the campaign rules, continue to be free. So no, there is no. We don't want any of the core content that you need to play the game to be locked behind a paywall. The way that we work, the way that our business model works is we provide everything you need to play for free, like to play a basic, nice, solid experience for free. And then any additional components to modify it, like gang wars, like the advanced rules, like a narrative campaign, those can be basically bought separately and then plugged into the main experience. That's the way that OPR functions. Sorry. Will Age of Fantasy Skirmish and Third Edition keep the Havoc clans? Yes. Although I have to say, I have been considering, and maybe this is gonna come as part of the refluffing thing. I am considering um to re-separate the clans again and the I'm not 100% sure, re-separating the clans and the gangs again, because what we did a while ago is we had so many different Havoc War clans and we had so many different gangs, and it was a bit of a mess, and it was hard to actually like update them in the tool, and it was a bit of a mess. And so at some point I was like, look, let me just kind of like bundle them together and give people the option to basically build their own warband. Um, and whilst that is fine and it works, it works well enough. It gives you some flexibility. Yes, it does feel very unfluffy, right? It's just hey, here's a bunch of mercenaries, and now you're just giving them one special rule, and so yeah, if we're actually going to the refluffing thing and all that stuff, then doing it for these factions might actually be an option that we look into and go back to that. Okay, are there any restrictions on making battle reports containing paid content, i.e., missions, packs, or narrative campaigns? So I guess the thing that you don't want to do is you don't want to literally expose the content, right? So if you show someone how to play, just you playing a mission, play the mission, right? But it's very different from, hey, here is a picture of all of the rules from the mission, right? That's paid content, right? So don't just post a picture of all the rules, or don't put all of the rules in the comments, or don't put all of the rules in the description, or don't spend the first minutes of the video explaining literally step by step every single way that each specific rule works, right? Like, please understand that we need to sell this content to be able to make these games. So don't just give out our content for free. That's the rule. Um, okay. Concerning the ambush rule where both players want to deploy, wouldn't it be more fair to have the player who would activate first that turn have to ambush first rather than a roll off? I'm not sure. This is something I have considered. I'm not sure if it's just gonna in some way complicate something that should be simple. I'm not sure. I'm not saying no, but I'm just not sure about it. And then we're here in the final question. So, is there hope for a fifth Havoc God, and maybe this Havoc God is of spite and malice, and perhaps this Havoc God whole deal is that it's the cause of Havoc in fighting? Uh, so I think I'm reading through between the lines and I understand what you're saying, and there is no plans for something like that. Now, we have always said that there is a very real possibility that there are more Havoc gods out there than just the main four that we have been showing. We have no plans for now, to release any lore about any other Havoc gods or make any miniatures for any other Havoc gods and all that stuff. But hey, within this world, within this universe, there is a very real possibility of something like that happen. And if you, for your own personal story and fluff, want to create a fifth Havoc God that is made of spite and malice and all that stuff, um, go ahead and do that. But this is just not official content. And look, in part, let me close this stuff. And in part, this goes back to we at OPR don't want, our mission is not to just make a copy of other people's work, right? We are trying to make something that feels unique to us. And sure, whilst we do make games and proxies and models that can serve as proxies to play other games, and yes, that's, we've always done that, and that's, miniature agnosticism, that's how it works, right? That doesn't mean that we are just looking to make a copy of everybody else. So that's why our ratmen are not dirty and backstabbing. That's why our vampiric undead don't have the classic lineup of the basic skeleton warrior and the basic skeleton archer and all that stuff. That's why our I don't know. Let me try to think. That's why our empire things are themed around the 5 elements within the lore and all that stuff, and so on and so forth. So I know that some people wish that we just did that, but there is no plan for doing that. So if you are hoping for us to make a release a fifth Havoc God of Malice and all that stuff, I'm sorry, but that's just not in the plans. Okay, cool. So I'm done now with those questions. We are actually 2 hours and 10 minutes into this. I'm going to scroll up a little bit and try and answer a couple of questions. So if you have a more questions right now, I'm going to be paying attention to the chat. So I'm going to answer these. I'm going to try to be kind of quick. I don't want this to go any further than another 15 minutes because usually I try to make these streams around an hour and a half. We're already 2 hours and 15 minutes in. And, I also would like to have dinner and go to bed eventually. It's 10 p.m. here. So, okay. Will the human empire dragon be changed to have more toughness than the griffin? Actually, in one of the early plans, thoughts for the refluffing of the empire, we were actually thinking of lowering the griffin to be toughness 9 rather than toughness 12. So you're more likely to see the griffin get a little less toughness than the dragon getting more toughness. Blah, 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 blah. You mentioned forming a marketing team. What is their current focus? Maybe the Vanguard program? Rafa, you're here in every stream asking the same question about the Vanguard program. When it's ready, sir. I'm so sorry, but when it's ready, we're gonna give you the news. We're gonna give you this stuff. Now I have some, let's say, good news for you. That yes, I have been thinking about the Vanguard program a lot, and I want us to focus on it. And literally this week, I had a call about the Vanguard program and setting things back in motion to get it done, and making some accountability to actually get it done and all that stuff. So we are working on it, but when it's done, please. I know you're coming back here every month to ask me the same question, but I don't have an answer. If I had it, I would have told you. Yeah. Will there be a way to upload pictures for units on Army Forge output form? So it's tough. Moderation is tough. If we just allow people to upload images to Army Forge, you can already imagine what's going to come. People are going to put copyright content on there. People are going to put maybe gore. Maybe they're going to put porn. Maybe they're going to put who knows what other terrible things that they could put. And so it's very tough. It's more likely that we would allow, for instance, a verified creator to upload pictures, because verified creators, we trust them, and we trust that they're going to upload pictures of their products. They're not going to upload other people's copyright material. They're not going to upload gore, right? So it's more likely that you will see something like this rather than, hey, a common user is now suddenly putting pictures of whatever copyright material all over our app. What do you think about adding sub-faction rules? No, not for now. Again, this is the type of thing where we don't want to accidentally step into the over complexity of other game systems, right? Now, you could say, hey, Havoc Brothers have 4 sub faction rules type factions. So something like that could possibly happen. Um, I don't know. In part, also it's one of those things where it's like maybe if we get to the point where we're like, okay, let's make a spin-off of the Human Defense Force that looks a bit different but uses more or less the same units and maybe has a couple of special rule changes. Okay, maybe we might do that at some point, but generally speaking, I don't want to just go in and give each army, 2, 3, 4 ways to be played completely differently, and now it's bloated and a mess, and I don't want that. Third edition nerfs some deadly weapons and cover gives defense. With those 2 changes, will units with defense 2 be even stronger? So it's more that the balance is slightly changing. So first off, like I said, there is a certain threshold of how much damage we want each unit to be able to output. And Battle Brothers famously are the ones where you can take a friggin' heavy fusion rifle with 18 inches, deadly 6 on a basic warrior, right? Which is, did I accidentally mute? I did not. Okay. Which is madness. And those are famously very, very cheap. So right now, I mean, let me quickly check out Army Forge. So right now, a basic battle brother warrior, whatever they're called, can take a heavy infusion for 50 points, and for 50 points, you can destroy units that are worth 1,000 points, and that's and it's available to your basic unit, and that's not super balanced. So our defense 2 units becoming even stronger. They are it's gonna be a little bit more fair to fight against them, right? Because basically the way that the balance is slightly changing is that your um the relation between weapons and bodies is slightly changing. So weapons are becoming a little bit more expensive, but overall, the balance is that everything is becoming slightly cheaper to be able to fit a nice point value. But also, we are adding, this is a lot of calculation stuff, and I don't want to get too far into it, but also we're adding a sort of scaling where the tougher a unit is, the more expensive it becomes. So we're trying to find a nice curve of points to make things feel a bit more balanced. So um, yeah, that's it. And again, it's not the fact that like we are nerfing some deadly weapons. It's that we are just redistributing which units have access to what sort of damage output. In the way that I balance the game, I don't want your basic battle brother to be able to dish out six deadly 6 AP4 18 inches on a quality 3 up roll. um yeah, I don't want that to be the reality of the game. That's not the type of game that I'm designing. So it's just, again, don't think of it like, oh, this is a nerf, this is a nerf. Think about it like this is just a shift. You're going to have to shift your strategy to adapt to the new system. Fomorian suggests community-driven quests like the army books from Asia, Army Forge Studio. That would be cool. That would be cool. Something that is a possibility, but again, we need the tooling, we need to work it out, we need to make sure that it's a solid system, and so on and so forth. Will this new terrain project be for new terrain only, or will this potentially affect terrain sets that have already been released? No. So this new terrain project, again, it's still an idea. We're still in the concept phase and all this stuff. But this new terrain project will be completely independent. It's a completely new thing. It will not affect old terrain. And in fact, in the long run, I suppose it's going to replace the old terrain. And the idea is to make a terrain that is much more usable. that is much more widely usable, let's say. I don't know how else to put it without going into too much detail. And basically change to a different type of system. And it's a system that then later we can say, okay, let's make a new version of the Ratman terrain that suits this new system. And uh, you know, that's kind of the thing. Again, I don't want to go too much into it, but that's kind of the idea. I love Titan Lords. Is there any plan to make them more usable at smaller point values than 2,000 points in 3.0? No. Titans were never intended to be played in your regular, 1,500, 2,000 point match. There might be some Titans that are cheap enough to fit in that. I actually think in 3.0, only the. I can double check actually right now. I think only the questing Titan. Let me double check. Titan Lords. The Questor Titan is the only Titan, I think. No, even the Questor Titan doesn't fit in 2K anymore. So you're gonna need to probably play 2.5, 3K to start fitting Titans in there. Yeah, it was never the intention for. It was never the intention for a basic 2K points army to have to face an insane model such as a Titan with 24, 30 toughness, 1,000 weapons, can destroy entire armies in two activations type of situation. Way over the horizon, has there ever been thoughts about branching into a third setting like World War II, Ancients, or the like? Absolutely not. We are not interested in doing historical. It's just you have to kind of think about it from our perspective. Like, we are a company that makes miniatures. There is an infinite amount of companies out there that make World War II historical whatever miniatures, and they make them. They're more expert at it. They understand the historical context better. They make them cheaper. They make them more available and all that stuff. And it's just like they're it's not really something that makes sense for us. It's not something you can really own either, right? So in part of it, like, we are building our own IP. It's unless we were to make some sort of like weird World War II type of setting or something like that, where we try to adapt things. But that's why Army Forge Studio is there. So use Army Forge Studio, and already now on Army Forge Studio there are people that made armies for a bunch of World War II factions, nations, or whatever, for ancients and stuff like that. And really, that's one of the big strengths about Army Forge Studio, and kind of my dream with Army Forge Studio. So that people are going to make armies to play other settings in with our rules, right? And I'm going to be honest, if you're interested in that, and if you want to help the community, and if you want to help OPR, please go ahead, go on Army Forge Studio, create your allies and your axis and all the in-betweens for World War II. Make all those lists, share them with the community, get feedback, keep working on them, make something cool, and you can really help out everyone. Because the dream of OPR is that, yeah, one day you're going to be able to walk into a game store and somebody's going to have their World War II faction from Axis, and somebody's going to have their allies, and they're going to be like, hey, what are we going to play? And it's like, oh, why don't we just play OPR? Go on the app, boom, download those. And even better, of course, the idea is that you can mix and match, right? That somebody says like, hey, I have my World War II miniatures here, and somebody else says, hey, I have my ancient, Romans here, and it's like, can we play together? And it's like, yes, Army Forge Studio, go ahead and play together and have some fun. Will there be a caster for Custodian Brothers and the Titan Lords? No plans for that right now. Any plans for non-Western and non-Asian armies in Age of Fantasy? Example giving Slavic, Turkish, etc. Some armies are inspired by different cultures. So, for instance, the Vampiric Undead are a sort of, not a fully Slavic army, but like, it's sort of Eastern European inspired army. And we actually have another faction that is kind of Turkish inspired. Not ready to reveal it yet and stuff like that. But for now, listen, what you're asking, and I'm sure that's what many people are asking, is like, hey, are we gonna make an army for fuck, what were they called? Are we going to make an army for Kislev? Are we going to make an army for Ind? Are we going to make an army for Nippon? Are we going to make an army? I get it. There is no plans for something like that right now. Maybe at some point in the future, but no plans for something like that right now. Was there any mention about FTL app release date? No, it's when it's ready. We are hoping to have it ready within the next couple months, but when it's ready. Did the release date announcement happen? Yes, 8th of September. Would you release the Grimdark Future book first if you finished it first, or would you wait and release both? We want to wait and release both. Because you have to understand that these books are being made in parallel, and we are constantly, and it's the first time we're making something like this, and we've been working on it for a while, and we are constantly learning lessons while working on one and applying those to the other, and then we're learning lessons in the other and applying it to the other one. And so there is a cross pollination of learning that's happening. And so I wouldn't want to just release one and then find out like, oh, we should have probably done all of these changes now, and then I don't know, take it back. And I want to have them both done and released at the same time. And I also think it's just fair in a sense for the people in this setting. Like, I think if we just released, for instance, the Grimdark Future World book before the Fantasy World book, there would be a lot of hate within the community of people saying like, oh, OPR only cares about sci-fi, OPR only cares about Grimdark. Why are we getting something? Oh, we're being neglected again. Oh, it's the whole Warhammer Fantasy situation all over, and we don't want any of that thing. Okay. Somebody says, I don't think that answered the question about Army Forge remaining free. Yes, Army Forge is remaining free. I'm not sure which part of the answer I provided did not make it clear. Army Forge is staying free. The armies are going to be available for free. The core rules are remaining for free. Some of the extra content is remaining for free. The starter sets with a ton of models are free. The extra models that you can get on a free tier on Patreon are free. The world books are going to be free. Eventually, the short stories are going to be free. When you sign up to the newsletter, you get some free models. All the free stuff will remain free, and we're going to keep giving you a lot of free stuff. So enjoy. Any plans on introducing named heroes with the increase in focus on lore? So we already actually have some named heroes through some of the early narrative campaigns that we made. And yes, so the idea is to have and to continue to make stories and whatever that feature characters and named characters. But we have no plans right now to put named heroes in our core faction. So even though, for instance, you can play Jacob's Path, there are no rules for Jacob and Kari in the Grimdark Future, in the Battle Brothers army book. They're just not there, and we have no plans to put them there. One thing we have considered as a possibility, maybe not sure, is that one day we could maybe have if we have enough characters, we could have a specific, I don't want to call it a book, but we would have a specific section or something on the Army Forge where let's call it an army book that's filled with all the heroes from the lore. And so then, yes, you could take your Battle Brothers and you say, hey, I'm going to take this hero from this. Maybe that could work. Not sure. I think some people would like that. I'm not sure. I'm not super opposed to that. The important thing for me is I want it to feel like an option and not like a requirement. Does that make sense? Like, I don't want you to feel like, oh, my army is at a disadvantage because I don't have this specific named character from this specific, narrative campaign, and so on and so forth. And I also don't want to really flood the army book with 1,000 named heroes. Maybe one thing we could do, but I'm not sure how this would work with the PDFs, is maybe one thing we could do is like, and by the way, I'm literally just imagining this right now for the first time and spitballing. Maybe one thing we could do is when you're creating an army, you could have an option to like add or enable named characters, and then, okay, they're going to be displayed there and you can take them in your army. eh, this is how I feel about it. I don't know. Blah blah blah. Why does the trike not have a railgun? Why do the exos not have a minigun? Just different strokes for different folks. Let me put it that way. Any new rumors to drop on small scale epic releases? No, I do not like rumors. I actually hate rumors because I feel like there are many situations where somebody will literally just start a rumor in our community for no reason. And then it starts. By now, the community is big enough that if it starts catching on, some people start regarding that as a reality. And I absolutely hate it. So there are no rumors on drop on small scale epic release. Now, how you should have phrased that question is: are there any news on the small scale releases? And as always, when it's ready. But as I was mentioning before going into doing the major work for the Age of Fantasy Quest tooling, we may or may not work on the small scale tooling because, like I was mentioning before, the transition from a unit in Grimdark, if we do it properly, to go from Grimdark to Firefight to Commander, could actually be relatively easy because you actually don't have to adapt as many things as you would have to for Quest, right? And part of the reason why the release and the development of the small scale games has also halted is because I have no way to go down and manually create units for all of these armies. And so there is a possibility that maybe we're going to possibly work on some of the tooling for a small scale, and perhaps that could, in some way, help me create, work on the rules in a more efficient way and playtest them more. And who knows, possibly provide some of those as a preview to our patrons, with maybe at that point some army lists to, who knows, get some feedback, work on the game, and maybe have that game released sooner rather than later. Now, if you want to start a rumor out of this, feel free to start a rumor. But I'm just trolling. But yeah, the reality is, who knows? If we can get the tooling done, it could help us maybe develop the game faster, and maybe we can have the game sooner rather than later. That's the real answer. All right. Any plans to release a concept art book of any kind? So this is something that we've been talking about, no joke, for the past 2 years, and I like the idea. The reality is, it takes work, and right now we don't really have anybody on our team that would be dedicated to that. But literally today, it's something that I was talking about with the team, and maybe it's a possibility. I'm not saying no. I'm saying, feeling wise, it's more yes than no. In actual reality of having it done and released, it's, I don't know. We haven't even started properly. Um, even getting together what would be the requirements and how would it be structured and what would be the layout and all this stuff. We're nowhere there, but the thought is there, the idea is there. And I think it would be a cool way. It would be a cool way to have something that we can provide to the fans, and also something that we could even just sell in our store and be like, hey, it's a small but additional source of income for OPR. It's a way for you guys to get some cool art, and learn more about our games, learn more about our processes, maybe have some more lore in there and stuff like that, and support OPR as a company. Because yeah, look, one thing I have to say, and I mean, I've talked about this before, but it's like, the OPR business model has always been very, very, very generous, right? So all of our games are free. Our rule books, the advanced rule books that are available on War Game Vault, are $5 a pop. If you subscribe to tier 1, you get 6 rule books for $5. A tier 2 subscription that gets you what, fucking 50 models plus 1 legendary plus 2 loyalty rewards, every X months, plus welcome pass, but all of that incredible amount of content is also just for $10, and that's great. And we've been very generous, and it's very great. But the reality is also that if OPR wants to continue to grow, we need to find ways to make some money, and make some money even outside of the regular, Patreon and regular streams of income that we have. And there was a period of time, a long period of time, and we were very grateful at where we were having a constant, consistent, very steep growth, and it has helped us grow the project to where it's now, and grow the team to where it's now, and provide you with all of this incredible content at this incredibly cheap price for now, and that's great. But if OPR wants to keep growing and going to the next step, the Patreon, as it is right now, it's stable. It's not growing exponentially anymore, which is it's fine. It was always to be expected. So if we want to continue our growth, we're going to also have to start finding additional revenue streams. Now, I know that, of course, some people are going to say, hey, I support on Patreon, and I believe that my $10 a month should get me everything that OPR ever makes, ever, forever. That's that's a great thing to believe in, but we are a company, and we have employees, and employees need to eat, and we need to pay health insurance, and so yes, we need to find ways to make additional money, to continue to raise the company. And a project such as concept art books would be a great opportunity to do that. So yeah, I like the idea, and I would love for it to come in motion sooner rather than later. Okay, then will there be a playable alien hive models for a certain 10 space bugs? There are a couple of new alien hives units coming, to give players more options to play with, but there will be no models made for them. Any thoughts about rebalancing alien hives so that half the list isn't titans with toughness 18, defense 2 up? Well, like I literally just mentioned, new units are coming, which actually will give you more options that are not at those thresholds. But part of the alien hives fantasy is swarms of grunts and stuff like that with enormous monsters behind them. That's just part of the fantasy. So we also don't want to start diluting that fantasy. Will there be rules for tough 12 plus models getting less lethal when reaching a dedicated amount of wounds? No, there is no plans for degrading stats. That's the type of additional complexity that OPR doesn't need. When adding more fluff to the factions, are they going to be all at once, or will some factions be before others? I suppose you're talking about the army fluffiness in the rules, and this will be staggered. It will be in batches. I don't think it's very healthy for the game to suddenly update 50 books at once, right? I could imagine that it would be something more like, hey, I don't know. We update 5 fantasy books and 5 grimdark books every month, and we post some articles where we talk about that, and we explain what is new and what is changing and stuff like that. Really get that communication out there, and also start getting that feedback, and then do that over the course of whatever 3, 4, 5 months, and then do the whole games like that. Do you have any plans for how to play resources for new players? Yeah, so if you go on our website, the first big thing that is right there is a get started button. If you click on that, it will take you to the starter sets. There are 2 fully free starter sets. They contain not only rules, they contain models, 3D printable 2. So across both, because there's a set for fantasy and a set for sci-fi, across both of them, you're getting 4 fully 3D printable armies for free. You're also getting terrain for free. You're also getting a ruler, I think, for free. You're getting some tokens for free. And there's also an equivalent version of all of that stuff in paper format. So if you don't have a 3D printer, you can print it for free. You can get it for free and print it. So yeah, that's and those, by the way, those contains a 5 mission tutorial mini campaign that takes you literally through, hey, how does movement work? Hey, how does shooting work? How does melee work? How does capturing objective works? How do different things interact? So yeah, it's a great resource. I'm going to be honest, even though it's literally the first big button that you get when you open the website, I feel like it's a resource that has kind of, I don't know, I feel like there are still so many people asking if we have this, that it makes me think somehow we would need to find a way to communicate this better. But yeah. Um, okay, then okay, continuing the question before about T12 units degrading. A tank with tough 12 has 100% efficiency until he's dead, but a unit of 10 miles does not. So that's why we are introducing actually a scaling cost to toughness, which will help fight this a bit. So having the same unit in 10 models of T1s versus one model of T10 will not cost the same anymore. The T10 model is going to become more expensive to balance out the fact that its stats don't degrade. Okay. Any plans to beef up armored vehicles and make them less susceptible to being rendered unusable by small weapons? Or do you mean by melee? Okay, by melee. So actually, melee is kind of meant to be your counter to one of the counters a little bit to stuff like tanks, in the sense that um, you are not meant to take a tank and park it in the middle of the battlefield, right? There's a reason tanks have, 36-inch range weapons, and there's a reason why you should protect your tanks from melee attacks and such, because we don't really want that. We don't want you to just take this massive model, put it in the middle, and be like, hey, it's fine, it's a tank, and it's invulnerable essentially, right? And so yes, that's why vehicles don't have melee weapons, and that's why they are susceptible to melee, and that's intended. So make sure to protect your vehicles. Make sure not to blindly get your vehicles within range of powerful melee units. Yeah. Um, okay. Any chance for basing bits? Possibly. Could you give us a hint as when you're saying when? I'm already gonna tell you when it's ready. When you'll tell us more about that new terrain system you mentioned, when it's ready. Um, mm, 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 mm. I will pay way more than I should for an art book like that as a print on demand. Sure. Maybe we could do that as a print on demand. So, one of the problems for us with print on demand of the rules is that the rules keep changing, right? And so, I don't want to sell you a physical copy of our rule book, which then in 3 months, when we do the quarterly update, suddenly has been changed and it's invalid, and now you have to go find an errata, and now you have to go find an FAQ, and now you have to go find whatever all of these type of documents are called, and suddenly what used to be, hey, OPR is this simple system to play, becomes an absolute bloated mess. But for an art book, that's much more possible, right? We could totally make an art book and make it as a physical thing, because once you have it, like it's not being updated, right? It's not getting new rules. Okay. Oh my god. Okay, there's still so many questions. Guys, I'm way over time. Let me try to quickly speed through the last questions. Will the toughness of a hero count towards the unit number for morale checks? This is a rules questions. Yes, please check the rules. Is toughness scaling confirmed? Toughness scaling is confirmed. Not selling books to become updated. Okay. Oh, wait. So we're actually at the end. Okay. Guys, this has been great. Thank you very much for joining. I see that there are no more questions. My God, 2 hours and 45 minutes. This, let's hope we don't get into super long ones like this again. I hope I have answered all the questions or most of the questions that you had about third edition and other things that we're working on. Next week, like I said, next Friday the 8th of September, the rules are going to come out. I don't have a specific ETA at what time of the day it's happening. Just expect that at some point, things are going to be down for a bit, and then suddenly they're going to be up again, and everything is going to be new. And yeah, it's releasing on a Friday, so you can get playing during the weekend. And yeah, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Help out the channel as much as you can. We want to keep growing these streams to hopefully keep reaching a wider audience of wargamers that might be interested in OPR and what we do and how we do it, and try to keep being awesome as much as we can. All right, thank you very much. I will head out, and yeah, I'll see you during the next stream. Actually, quick thing. So at the end of September, I'm actually going to be traveling for 2 weeks, and so usually at the end of September would be the next stream. I'm going to be traveling, and then when I come back on the first week of October, it's actually Spiel Essen, so that convention I was talking about at the beginning. So I'm gonna try and squeeze in a stream on the 2nd or the 3rd of October. Yes, let's say the 2nd of October. But anyway, we'll make a post, we'll let you know, and if something changes, I'll let you know. But yeah, so see you on the next stream on the 2nd of October, maybe.